Why is he staring at me like that? The more Rios thought about it, the more unsettled he became. What happened to Larry today? Ever since Mafa Merlin walked in, he's been weirdly quiet. Now he's acting like he feels sorry for me. Rios scoffed to himself. That idiot must have taken a hit to the head. After a moment, he brushed it off. Whatever. I'll ignore him. That's right, compensation. Rios shoved Larry's odd behavior aside and lifted his chin at Lin Yun. The Gilded Rose has gone too far. You've got two options now. Pay compensation, or we become enemies. Compensation sounds better. You're a smart man. Rios' mouth curled into a smug smile. Since Lin Yun had chosen to settle, Rios finally sat down. He'd stayed standing this whole time, just so he could loom over the young mage. Then Lin Yun spoke again, and the smile slid right off Rios' face. My terms are simple. 200,000 gold for each apprentice alchemist. 5 of them, so 1 million total. And I want the stolen goods delivered to the outskirts of Edge Rift before dark. Wait. Rios had barely settled in his chair when he snapped back up. Sure, he'd heard wrong. What kind of compensation is that supposed to be? Great swordsman Rios, did you really think you could detain Gilded Rose people like they were nobodies? Lin Yun's voice stayed calm. Those 5 you grabbed are our best apprentice alchemists. Each one brings huge profit to the Gilded Rose. 200,000 each is nothing compared to what you cost us. Larry pressed a hand to his forehead, already dreading what was about to happen. You're saying the Viper Nest should pay the Gilded Rose 1 million gold. Rios finally processed it. And if I am, Mafa Merlin, you're asking to die. Rios slammed to his feet, rage twisting his face. The long scar across his cheek warped as if alive. Rios, don't be stupid. Larry reached out fast, trying to pull him back. Get off me. A 9th rank mage couldn't hold back a great swordsman in full fury. Rios shrugged him aside like he was nothing. Larry stumbled away to the wall. Rios grabbed the huge magic greatsword at his side. Aura exploded from him. With a sharp crack, the long table split cleanly in two. The storm of pressure in the room surged outward, shredding chairs to splinters. This was a great swordsman's power. A normal swordsman fought with muscle. A great swordsman fought with aura, and aura at its peak could destroy like a natural disaster. Stone felt soft in front of it. Furniture didn't stand a chance. Rios' rage made it worse, and the room paid the price. Lin Yun didn't even flinch. Everything you broke just now will be added to the compensation, he said casually. You really want to die? Rios' face contorted. The scar looked like a centipede crawling across his skin. He lifted the great sword again. This time he wasn't aiming for furniture. He was aiming at Lin Yun. Aura roared up in waves, slamming through the room. A wall groaned, cracks spreading under the pressure. Red aura gathered along the blade, and with a furious shout, Rios swung down. Even Larry felt his blood chill. He was a 9th rank mage, but against a great swordsman going all out like this, he had no chance. Just the stray pressure forced him to throw up a shield so he wouldn't collapse. A mage couldn't stop that kind of strike. Only a great mage could. The blade came down, heavy with aura, and Lin Yun still didn't move. He only murmured a short incantation, so soft it almost vanished beneath the howl of the sword. But the moment those words left his mouth, the air changed. The great sword stopped dead in mid-slash, as if an invisible hand had seized it. Not just the sword. Rios froze too. His sneer vanished. His body locked in place. Sweat rolled down his temple, the only thing on him that could still move. It felt like he was fighting to move and losing. The room fell into a terrifying silence. No roaring aura. No shouting. Only a crushing pressure that made it hard to breathe. And at the center of it sat Lin Yun, still calm, still untouched. I said, Lin Yun repeated, rising slowly to his feet. Everything you broke will be paid for by the Viper Nest. He wore the same faint smile as before, but his eyes were different. Too calm, too empty. Not cold with hatred, not hot with emotion. It was the look of someone who didn't see another person in front of him. Rios felt his skin go tight. Who is this Mafa Merlin? He wanted to ask. He couldn't. That spell had bound him completely. His mouth wouldn't open. His fingers wouldn't twitch. His body belonged to someone else now. All he could do was watch. Watch Lin Yin lift a hand. Watch his own body rise into the air like a puppet on a string. Then the invisible force tightened around his throat, lifting him higher, squeezing harder. Rios clawed at nothing, trying to struggle, trying to scream, but the binding held him like iron. Panic flooded his mind. Rank, pride, the viper nest, all of it meant nothing now. If he could rewind time, he would have never stepped into this room. And finally, he understood Larry's strange look earlier. Larry had known. They were in front of a great mage. Someone who could kill a great swordsman with a flick of the wrist. And Rios had drawn a sword on him. Rios tried to beg, but he couldn't even nod. Darkness crept in at the edges of his vision. The world narrowed to a choking haze. Go back and tell Sauce to prepare 2 million gold, Lin Yin said evenly. Then he swung his hand. Rios shot out of the room like a cannonball. The wall exploded as he crashed through it. Pain tore across his body as he went tumbling into open air. When his vision cleared, he was lying in the middle of Victorious Return Street. Every bone felt shattered. He couldn't find a single spot that didn't burn. But pain wasn't what terrified him. He gulped air like a drowning man, shaking with pure fear. Back in the reception room, Lin Yin turned to Larry, who was still rooted in place, pale as death. Larry, Lin Yin said lightly. Larry jumped like he'd been struck. I understand. I'll handle everything. Good. To the people of Thousand Sails City, the poison fog canyon in the north was a true forbidden zone. Poisonous mist hung there year-round, thick enough to kill. And inside that mist lived the city's largest underground force, the Viper Nest. Even a Manchi family, the Viper Nest backers, couldn't understand why Sauce had chosen that wasteland. The ore veins were poor, poison drifted everywhere, and vicious magic beasts lurked in the fog. Among all the territories controlled by the city's major powers, Poison Fog Canyon wasn't the worst, but it was easily among the bleakest. There was no real profit to squeeze out a place like that. Worse, the Viper Nest had to station huge numbers of men there every year just to fend off the beasts. Yet for 10 years, they never abandoned it. The real reason, only Sauce knew. Over time, the canyon stopped looking like a wasteland and started looking like a fortress. Defensive walls, watchtowers, sentry posts, layers upon layers of protection. Anyone passing near it could feel the menace. Even Sasu, leader of the Silver Moon mercenaries and the strongest great swordsman in Thousand Sails City, had cursed after seeing it. That bastard Sauce is a real coward. Coming from Sasu, that meant something. He was a man who had pushed his aura to its peak years ago, someone one step away from entering an even higher realm. If even he looked at Poison Fog Canyon and felt uneasy, then the place was terrifying. Deep inside the canyon, in a temporary wooden house. So you're telling me Maffa Merlin is a great mage? Sauce asked. He was short, middle-aged, pale, and plain enough to vanish in a crowd. No one meeting him for the first time would guess this ordinary man commanded the biggest underground force in the city. Why, yes, came the weak answer. Sauce stood beside a sickbed. On it lay Rios, the great swordsman who had been humiliated at the Gilded Rose. The arrogant swagger he'd carried before was gone. Now he was wrapped head to toe in bandages, stiff and powerless like a mummy. He's really a great mage, Sauce muttered, rubbing his temples. The kid had hidden himself too well. Not even 20, yet cautious enough to keep his strength buried all this time. Sauce couldn't imagine doing the same. If he had become a great mage in his 20s, the whole city would have heard about it within a day. He would have made sure of it. But Maffa was different. He advanced in silence. If Rios hadn't been crushed so badly, Sauce might still be thinking the Gilded Rose was easy prey. A great mage under 20, it was unreal. If I'd known earlier the Gilded Rose had someone like that behind it, I never would have detained their goods. I never would have sent Rios and Larry to negotiate. I basically sent them to get wrecked, damn it. Sauce felt his head pound. I shouldn't have even looked at the Hope Potion formula. Now I've offended a young great mage. If Maffa had been a normal great mage, it wouldn't have been this bad. The Viper Nest wasn't the strongest faction in the city, true, and it lacked a monster like Solomon. But Sauce had spent 20 years building it. In a desperate fight, he could still throw out 4 or 5 great mages and great swordsmen. If they all went for blood, the outcome wouldn't be certain. But great mage under 20 wasn't normal. Before Mafa Merlin, who held the record for youngest great mage in Thousand Sail City, Ryan Monchi, not even 30, and Solomon had already praised him as rare talent. When Ryan returned, every major faction lined up to befriend the Monchi family. Was that because Ryan was already so strong? Of course not. Any major force had great mages and great swordsmen. What they wanted was his future. A great mage before 30 would almost certainly become a high mage. If you allied with Ryan now, you gained a high mage's backing later. If that was true for Ryan, then what about Mafa? A great mage not yet 20. Something the city had never produced, and even in the Eastern Kingdom, only a handful existed. Sauce didn't dare imagine what that kind of genius could become in 10 or 20 years. Offending him was suicide, and right now, Sauce didn't even have the strength to risk it. For 10 years, the Viper Nest had been expanding deeper into Poison Fog Canyon, chasing a secret Sauce alone understood. A secret big enough to shock the entire kingdom. But that expansion ate up nearly half the Nest's manpower. Until he found what he was looking for, Sauce couldn't bring out his full force. That was why the Viper Nest had stayed low-key all these years. If Mafa were just an ordinary mage, Sauce would have crushed him and stolen the Hope Potion formula without blinking. But Mafa wasn't ordinary. He wasn't even an ordinary great mage. A man who could casually cripple a great swordsman wasn't someone Sauce could treat lightly. This time, consequences mattered. "Bell," Sauce said, turning slightly. "What do you think?" The reply came from the old man who had been sitting behind him the whole time without a word. 5th rank great mage, at least. The old man wore a black robe trimmed with thin silver embroidery at the cuffs. A real great mage. Yet unlike Rios, he showed no obvious magic fluctuations. His presence was calm, almost erased. Only experienced great mages could hide their power that completely. Everyone in Thousand Sail City had heard rumors about the Viper Nest's mysterious great mage. He'd stood behind Sauce from the beginning. He rarely spoke, rarely moved, but Sauce listened when he did. And whenever Bell acted, enemies vanished. No one knew Bell's true strength. They only knew he was terrifying. Even Solomon had once joked that if Sauce was willing to lend Bell to the Sage Tower, he'd trade 3 great mages for him. A joke, obviously. Sauce would never give Bell up, and Solomon couldn't afford such a trade anyway. But that joke spread like wildfire, and it told the city one thing clearly. Bell was no one to mess with. Bell wasn't a subordinate so much as a shadow advisor. Sauce asked his opinion before making any big move. So when Bell said 5th rank or higher, Sauce didn't doubt it for a second. He only drew a slow breath. All right, Sauce made his decision. Forget the apprentices for now. We still have their goods. Send everything to the outskirts of Edge Rift before dark. Sauce wasn't indecisive. The moment he realized the Gilded Rose wasn't an easy target, he cut his losses, even if it bruised his reputation. To him, saving face didn't matter nearly as much as avoiding a disaster. Retreating now might make him a laughingstock for a while, but provoking a young great mage with that kind of potential could destroy the Viper Nest completely. Give that boy 10 or 20 years, and he might become an archmage. At that point, wiping out old enemies would be as easy as flicking dust away. "Move!" Sauce barked. "Send someone right now." Rios forced out another sentence from the bed. "Be boss." Mafa Merlin also said. "What else?" He said, "The trouble caused to each apprentice is worth 200,000 gold. And the damage I did at the Gilded Rose must be compensated with 1 million gold. 2 million. Sauce almost leapt up, then slammed the table so hard it rattled. What does he think the Viper Nest is his purse? Before he could say more, the door burst open again. A mage stumbled in, clothes torn to shreds, a black burn across one shoulder like he'd taken a fire, spell head on. "Boss, it's bad. Spit it out." Sauce snapped, already on edge. "Why do you look like that?" The mage swallowed hard. Boss. Mama Mafa Merlin is forcing his way in.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
This was too much of a humiliation. Sauce could feel the veins on his forehead throbbing, as the situation was really unbearable. The Viper Nest had occupied the Poison Fog Canyon for an entire decade, and no force had ever dared to force their way in. But that Mafa Merlin decided to invade the Poison Fog Canyon because of 5 apprentice alchemists and a few carts of alchemy items. This was too brutal. He wasn't putting the Viper Nest in his eyes at all. Mafa Merlin, you are courting death. Sauce was already completely enraged. His normally pale face flushed red as the table shook under his hands. The great swordsman in the sickbed started shivering. Rios wanted to warn Sauce that he shouldn't say something like that. But seeing Sauce's ruddy face, the great swordsman tactfully decided to remain silent and just let things play out. Let's go. I want to see how bold this Mafa fellow is. Sauce left the wooden house with Belle following just behind. He raised his head and saw numerous arrows flying out of the sentry towers on both sides of the Poison Fog Canyon like a swarm of locusts. A formation of 20 mages was already covering the entrance with spells. Over 100 elite fighters holding weapons were standing behind them, ready to charge at the enemy anytime now. Reckless fools, Sauce snorted after exiting the wooden house, his expression slowly easing up. The Viper Nest he had been painstakingly building all these years finally got to show the results. These elites were able to organize themselves when facing the sudden attack of a great mage without anyone panicking. Indeed, the Viper Nest had stayed low-key for the last few decades. But just because they remained relatively inconspicuous, it didn't mean that they were easily bullied. That Mafa Merlin was overexcited from wielding his powers as a great mage, and, in a moment of foolishness, decided that my Viper Nest was an easy target. Now it's time to make him pay for underestimating me. Seeing the valiant fight put up by his subordinates, Sauce's flushed face finally cooled down. He looked at the battlefield and focused on the entrance. A rain of arrows and spells fell onto the entrance. Every corner of the entrance was hit by that frightening firepower. Dozens of corpses were lying there, blood filling every hole in the ground, and most of the soil was now dark red. They were taking no chances with this foe. I want to see how many people this Mafa Merlin brought here to die. Be boss. The mage who had burst in and brought the terrible news earlier once again said something dreadful. That person is alone. Sauce's face instantly froze. Mafa being alone. Doesn't that mean that all those corpses on the ground are my subordinates? Fuck, Sauce suddenly cursed. But just as he said that, the mage next to him cut in, stammering, boss, look. What? Sauce gave him a fierce glance before following his finger and catching sight of a silhouette walking from the entrance of the Poison Fog Canyon. From their location, that silhouette didn't seem very tall. It could even be said to be thin and weak. It felt delicate, standing amidst the rain of arrows and spells covering the sky, as if it would be crushed in an instant. But that delicate silhouette was slowly walking in from the entrance of the Poison Fog Canyon. Whether it was the arrows or the spells, they didn't seem to exist in his eyes. He unhurriedly plodded along, as if he wasn't entering the deadly Poison Fog Canyon, but instead just going for an afternoon walk. The only difference was that this silhouette was surrounded by blue and red lights. Even under the bombardment of spells, those two lights were exceptionally dazzling. Sauce could clearly see that the two lights were fluttering at an astonishing speed, and that every flicker would stop an arrow or a spell. That silhouette was relying on the protection of these two lights to enter the Poison Fog Canyon unharmed. This is the Ice Fire Shield. Sauce looked at the two lights as if he had seen something unfathomable. The Ice Fire Shield wasn't an earth-shattering, heaven-defying spell. It wasn't even a spell from a neglected branch of magic. It existed in almost every great mage's spellbook. The Ice Shield blocked all physical damage, while the Fire Shield erased all magical attacks. Because of its efficiency, it could be said that as long as there wasn't an extremely significant difference in power, nothing could pass directly through the Icefire's shield, whether it was a physical or a magical attack. Furthermore, after the Icefire shield was initially cast, there was no need to focus on the mana supply. As long as there was enough mana left, the Icefire shield would remain channeled. For most great mages, the Icefire shield was a must-know protective spell, but very few great mages would spend too much time on, or I could accept it. 2 million gold doesn't seem to be too much after all. As Sauce was hesitating, a rumbling sound echoed in the distance. Sauce's eyelids twitched. He clearly saw that young great mage throw out a flame burst, exploding his sentry tower. Damn it, quick, quick! Everyone stop now! Sauce no longer hesitated. He immediately told the mages to transmit his order as he hurried a few steps toward the center of the canyon, waving his hands while loudly yelling, "Great Mage Merlin, please stop. This is a misunderstanding." "Hi, Leader Sauce," Lin Yun replied to Sauce cordially, while at the same time firing off another flame burst. Moments later, a rumbling sound echoed as another sentry tower exploded. I'm sorry it slipped." It's all right. Sauce lowered himself while giving respect to Lin Yun as an ugly smile appeared on his face. "Great Mage Merlin, can we have a discussion?" "Of course, I wouldn't dare to offend Leader Sauce." Lin Yun was also smiling, but another flame burst was already prepared in his hand. Just as he was about to continue slipping again, he felt a familiar mana fluctuation from the depths of the Poison Fog Canyon. At this instant, Lin Yun's expression changed a bit, but he quickly covered it up. At the same time, he chose not to let that last flame burst slip this time. He was secretly paying attention to that familiar mana fluctuation. "That's great." Sauce didn't notice Lin Yun's expression. After seeing that Lin Yun had stayed his hand, Sauce quietly heaved a sigh. He greeted Lin Yun enthusiastically while turning to berate those fighters who were poised to charge. "You scoundrels, hurry up and put down your weapons. Great Mage Merlin is our Viper Nest's precious guest. If a single hair on his head is harmed, I'll feed you to the magic beasts in the Poison Fog Canyon." One after the other, the fighters let go of their weapons. But they couldn't stop cursing inwardly. How can we even touch a hair with those lights circling around him? He could surely kill us all without losing a single hair. "I'm saving you. Isn't that obvious?" After 2 sentry towers had already been sent to heaven, how could Sauce dare to try and make excuses to Lin Yun? These fighters were elites of the Viper Nest. If Maffa had made another move against them, Sauce wouldn't have been able to endure it. "Great Mage Merlin, can we discuss things inside?" As soon as he thought of the possibility that Lin Yun might cause further harm to his forces, Sauce didn't dare to keep him waiting outside, so he invited Lin Yun into the wooden house. 3 people entered the wooden house together: Lin Yun, Sauce, and Belle. After taking a seat inside, Lin Yun glanced at Belle. He had heard people saying that the Viper Nest had a very powerful great mage, and that even Solomon had once praised him. After looking at Belle, Lin Yun guessed that this should be that person. He seemed to be an exceptional great mage, around 6th or 7th rank, and with a very powerful magic conducting rune. Great Mage Belle's true fighting strength should be higher than his rank would suggest. Lin Yun was truly a bit afraid of this most powerful mage of the Viper Nest. If the Viper Nest had made their base in another place instead, Lin Yun might not necessarily have dared to go over. But since this was the Poison Fog Canyon, everything would be a lot easier. "Great Mage Merlin, this is truly a misunderstanding." Sauce bowed his head far faster than Lin Yun had imagined. This time, all Sauce could think about was how to send this demon away. This demon's destructive power was too frightening. He strolled inside and casually killed 20 or so elites of the Viper Nest, toying with his forces for all the while. If he had kept going, the Viper Nest would have been destroyed. He was a living curse. How come I never heard about Loch Merlin's son being such a demon? Wasn't it said that Loch Merlin's son had no prospects and was still a young magic apprentice? Damn magic apprentice. Sauce inwardly cursed while grinding his teeth. If someone mentions that, I'll show them to those 2 demolished sentry towers. Leader Sauce, there is no problem. Great Mage Merlin, I understand. Sauce only wanted to get rid of this guy as soon as possible, so he hurriedly agreed to the conditions Lin Yun had yet to say. 5 apprentice alchemists, 200,000 gold each, along with what Rios broke, a total of 2 million gold. Rest assured, I'll have someone deliver a crystal card to the Gilded Rose tomorrow. Does Great Mage Merlin still need anything else? Sauce's last sentence was purely out of politeness, but being polite didn't matter, as Lin Yun wouldn't be courteous with him. Yes, there is still something. Lin Yun suddenly recalled the familiar magic fluctuation that he had sensed when he entered the Poison Fog Canyon. If he wasn't wrong, it had most likely come from that place that had been mentioned by countless mages during the pinnacle of the magic era. He definitely wouldn't hold back when it came to matters related to that place. That region might mean nothing to others, but for himself, it was an opportunity to have 5 magic arrays. Hearing Lin Yun's words, Sauce felt like slapping himself twice. It was just small talk, small talk. Damn, you were the one that proposed this. Are you going back on your words already? But the words were already spoken, so Sauce couldn't back out. Thus, Sauce had no choice but to brace himself and squeeze out a twitching smile. Great Mage Merlin, what do you need? Please do not hesitate. Since Leader Sauce says so, I won't need to be polite about it. Sauce felt the vein on his forehead twitching as he mentally complained. Since when were you polite? I believe Leader Sauce also knows that my Gilded Rose has some level of cooperation with the Silver Moon mercenaries. I agreed to provide a large amount of alchemy products to the Silver Moon mercenaries battling in Edge Rift. Poison Fog Canyon is basically the only route to get there, and thus, I would like to discuss with Leader Sauce if my Gilded Roses caravans could be allowed to pass freely through the Poison Fog Canyon in the meantime. This, Sauce hesitated a bit and frowned. It wasn't that Lin Yun's conditions were harsh and unreasonable. The issue this time was caused by the Gilded Roses caravans entering the Poison Fog Canyon. Lin Yun's request could be considered an attempt to settle the problem in good faith. But Sauce was somewhat worried. Many people knew that in the past decade, Sauce had been thinking of every possible way to expand in the depths of the Poison Fog Canyon, but had never told the real reason to anyone. This was because Sauce knew that the depths of the Poison Fog Canyon held a temple. In those years, when Sauce was still a good-for-nothing, he once went into the Poison Fog Canyon and found the corpse of a powerful swordsman. Sauce had inherited his sword skills from that powerful swordsman. But Sauce's talent wasn't very great, so he was only a 4th-rank great swordsman. However, the inheritance of the swordsman's skills wasn't all that he found. There was also a diary. Written in this diary was the reason that the great swordsman crossed the sea to reach Thousand Sail City. He had been heading for the temple hidden deep within the Poison Fog Canyon. When Sauce first read the diary, he was truly frightened. After getting some results with the swordsman's inheritance, Sauce established the Viper Nest and joined the power struggle within Thousand Sail City. Over the course of the next 20 years, Sauce managed to grow the Viper Nest into becoming the largest underground force. And to everyone's shock, they went and occupied the Poison Fog Canyon. The Poison Fog Canyon was truly too important to Sauce. Important to the point that Sauce wouldn't tolerate anything unexpected. Lin Yun's condition sounded reasonable and fair, but if something went wrong, it would mean 20 years of wasted effort to Sauce. Thus, Sauce thought for a bit before deciding to refuse. As he opened his mouth to reply, Lin Yun cut in. "Oh right, Leader Sauce." When he saw Sauce frown, Lin Yun guessed that he would refuse. But this was related to an opportunity to quickly get 5 magic arrays. How could Lin Yun let him refuse? Before Sauce could say a word, Lin Yun took out a glass bottle. "I heard that the poison fog from the Poison Fog Canyon has caused the Viper Nest a lot of trouble over the years. So, I specially prepared this potion before coming to see you." "A potion?" "Yes, a potion that can protect people from the influence of the poison fog." Lin Yun opened the bottle, and a faintly sweet fragrance spread through the wooden house. "I call it Magic Spring. It's quite potent, so there is no need to use a lot. 1 bottle is enough. Put it in a ventilated place, and within 3 days, the poison fog will become harmless to your subordinates. This kind of potion exists." Sauce suddenly felt elated. If this magic spring really was as mystical as the young great mage claimed, his plans to expand toward the depths of the Poison Fog Canyon could finish perhaps 3 years sooner. In the past 10 years, the Poison Fog truly had caused the Viper Nest a lot of trouble. They would lose about 10 elites every month because of it. Sauce truly wouldn't have expected these negotiations to bring him such pleasant news. Wait a second. That's not right. Just as Sauce was about to thank Lin Yun and accept, he realized something wrong. The smile on his face stiffened, and his face turned deathly white. Although his eyes were still looking at Lin Yun, his gaze was now filled with anger and fright. No good. This isn't an offer to help the Viper Nest. This is an open threat. This young mage showing me the magic spring potion is a way to tell me that the Gilded Rose has already thoroughly researched the poison fog in this canyon. If he can make a potion that can restrain the poison fog, then he can probably also make a potion to strengthen the poison. He might even be carrying such a potion at this moment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to come to the Poison Fog Canyon alone, even if he is a 5th-rank great mage. As his thoughts reached this point, Sauce felt a chill spread through his body. If such a potion appeared in the Poison Fog Canyon, then a calamity would befall the Viper Nest. The threatening poison fog would turn into a monster that devoured lives rampantly, and the Viper Nest's hundreds of elites, raised throughout the years, would vanish in an instant. Sauce felt the strength seeping out of his body. He sat there in a daze, staring at Lin Yun with complex feelings. Loch Merlin's son is too frightening. Great Mage Merlin surely has more than one potion. Despite Sauce knowing that he shouldn't provoke the young mage in front of him, when he thought about the Viper Nest stepping into hell, he couldn't help being a bit sarcastic. Haha, naturally. If Leader Sauce feels that one bottle isn't enough, I can offer a few bottles, Lin Yun responded with a smile. Sauce didn't guess wrong. Besides the magic spring potion that could restrain the poison fog, Lin Yun had indeed also prepared a potion to strengthen the poison mist. This was the real reason that Lin Yun had dared to enter the Poison Fog Canyon alone. He knew that he was at an overwhelming advantage inside it. The current Poison Fog Canyon wasn't very well known. Thousand Sail City's people didn't understand why Sauce Viper Nest would occupy such a poor territory. The only person in Thousand Sail City that could make sense of Sauce's decision to expand there was Lin Yun. This was because he knew that 100 or so years later, numerous forces would fight over the Poison Fog Canyon. Initially, a mercenary group found a temple from the 3rd dynasty in the depths of the canyon. Later on, that group became one of the peak mercenary groups of the kingdom by relying on the wealth that they brought out. For some unknown reason, rumors about the place leaked out many years later. Suddenly, all the powers of the kingdom were like sharks who had smelled blood. They all rushed to try to gain control of the Poison Fog Canyon. Lin Yun remembered at least 3 wars that involved more than 10,000 people each. Blood dyed every corner of the Poison Fog Canyon. The magic spring potion that Lin Yun had taken out and the sunset potion in his pocket had appeared in one of the wars. At that time, the sunset potion had brought about a true bloodbath. Countless corpses were left in the Poison Fog Canyon, and one of the peak powers of the kingdom was destroyed in the war. That war was viewed as one of the classic examples of the power of alchemy and would be repeatedly mentioned by alchemists for the following years. Lin Yun found the formula of the magic spring and sunset potions in the notes of those alchemists. When he heard Sauce, Lin Yun knew that he wouldn't have to use the sunset potion. But Sauce didn't really need to worry about Lin Yun. After all, what Lin Yun wanted wasn't the wealth of the temple. He just wanted the opportunity to get 5 magic arrays quickly. Moreover, whether Sauce would be able to obtain the wealth in the temple wasn't set in stone. Unless he had the luck of that future mercenary group, or had the help of an archmage, Sauce wouldn't be able to catch sight of the temple he was yearning for. But Lin Yun obviously wouldn't tell him that. I know that Leader Sauce has been painstakingly expanding in the Poison Fog Canyon for years, and definitely wouldn't allow outsiders to go inside. How about this, Leader Sauce? My caravans will establish a path only in the south, and only for a period of 3 months. After 3 months, even if the Silver Moon mercenaries have yet to clear Edge Rift, our Gilded Rose will think of another way to supply them. South. Sauce finally looked better when he heard this proposal. He would be able to accept it if they only passed through the southern part of the Poison Fog Canyon. After all, the temple was located in the northern part of the Poison Fog Canyon. If they stayed in the south, then even if the Gilded Roses people had wings, how could they influence his plans? That's good, 3 months. Sauce still felt like he was losing out, though, so he added with clenched teeth, "But I want 10 bottles of that potion." "That can be done. Come get them at the Gilded Rose tomorrow." Now that they had agreed, Sauce handled business straightforwardly. When Lin Yun came out of the wooden house, the 5 apprentice alchemists were already there waiting for him. At the same time, Sauce told Lin Yun that he had sent someone to deliver the batch of alchemy items and that they would definitely reach Edge Rift before dark. Lin Yun said a few things to the apprentice alchemists before sending them back. Lin Yun then told Sauce that he wanted to take a look at the southern part of the Poison Fog Canyon to see if there was a location suitable for a road. Sauce naturally didn't dare to stop him. The magic spring potion was in his hand, but he was sure that the young great mage still had a potion that was capable of strengthening the poison fog in his hands. After watching Lin Yun's silhouette fade into the distance, Sauce made a decision while gnashing his teeth. Regardless of how he did it, he had to get a group of mighty alchemists, or else the poison fog of the Poison Fog Canyon would remain a rope tied below his neck, leaving the viper nest forever unable to escape the control of that young great mage. Lin Yun was unaware of Sauce's decision, but even if he knew about it, he wouldn't care about such a trivial matter. Regardless of whether it was the magic spring or the sunset potion, they were both just parts of strategy. For a mage, the most reliable strategy would always be the magic that they controlled. Lin Yun was confident that once he had 5 magic arrays, he would be able to kill every member of the Viper Nest in an hour, even without the Sunset Potion. This included Great Mage Bell, who currently seemed quite formidable. Equals. Far from the line of sight of the Viper Nest sentry towers, Lin Yun took out a magic spring potion and drank it. Although he had told Sauce that the potion should be placed in a ventilated place to gradually grant his followers resistance to the poison over the course of 3 days, that would only be effective in the places where the fog was thin. If one wanted to enter the depths of the Poison Fog Canyon with the densest poison like Lin Yun, they would have to drink the magic spring potion. In this era, no one understood the Poison Fog Canyon more than Lin Yun. Not even Sauce, who had been exploring the area for over a decade. The current Sauce still didn't know that if he entered further into the depths of the Poison Fog Canyon, the concentration of the poison would become extremely frightening, to the point that it eradicated all life apart from those magic beasts who fed on the poison fog. Even weeds couldn't survive. Even the magic spring potion in Lin Yun's hands, which would become known as the pass for traveling through the Poison Fog Canyon in the future, could only protect a person for 10 minutes per bottle. But thankfully, Lin Yun had come prepared. He had over a dozen magic spring potions inside his bag. In other words, Lin Yun would have close to 2 hours to explore the depths of the Poison Fog Canyon. After drinking the magic spring potion, a faint green mist began spreading on Lin Yun's body. It looked thin, but it was condensing over him, not scattering. Regardless of how Lin Yun moved, that green mist would keep lingering around him. By this time, Lin Yun had already gone very far into the southern part of the Poison Mist Canyon. The red fog in his surroundings became denser and denser. It was visibly thicker than it had been back at the Viper Nest base. But after Lin Yun drank the potion, the red mist transformed like ice under sunshine, melting away. Indeed, melting. As the red fog came into contact with the green mist, steam drifted into the air. Lin Yun relied on the protection of the green mist to go deeper into the Poison Fog Canyon. It should be near here. After drinking the 3rd magic spring potion, Lin Yun stopped. The description left behind by the alchemists of the Peak era only had vague descriptions of the Poison Fog Canyon. There weren't any maps or even any precise paths to follow. All that Lin Yun could do was to blindly move about while relying on those unclear directions, hoping that he would reach his destination. In any case, he still had a decent stock of potions in his bag, enough to turn back in case of an unforeseen event. After drinking another potion, the red fog cleared up once more, and Lin Yun could clearly see crimson-colored barren soil ahead of him. It felt as if someone had watered the soil with blood. There should be a cave here. After making a rough assessment of the distance, Lin Yun didn't immediately hurry to find the cave. He instead whispered a few incantations and quickly cast haste, levitation, poison resistance, stone skin, and some other buffs on himself. Sure enough, just as Lin Yun summoned his ice fire shield, a sudden sound came from below, followed by a bright red color blossoming under his feet. It was like a huge red flower blooming. But Lin Yun was already prepared, having made his move just when the sound echoed. The power of the magic array was put on full display. After merging with the magic array, the haste spell was almost twice as effective as an ordinary haste spell. It was comparable to a great mage magic conducting rune. With this superior haste spell, Lin Yun's speed was like a gust of wind. Before the bright red blossomed, Lin Yun had already rushed 10 meters away, and with the levitation effect, Lin Yun broke away from the pull of gravity as he hovered above the ground. At the same time, an instant cast magic array was activated, and a huge fireball hovered in Lin Yun's palm. Instant cast flame burst. A loud rumbling sound thundered out, making it seem as if the entire poison fog canyon was shaking. A mournful scream echoed. Lin Yun looked down, and sure enough, it was a rotten flower. Rotten flowers weren't actually flowers. They were merely flower-like magic beasts. They normally hid underground in the poison fog canyon, unmoving for months or even a year. However, once one of them smelled fresh flesh, it would immediately come out and spread its maws of red petals and swallow its prey in one bite. The might of the flame burst spell would never leave one feeling disappointed. Even if it was a rotten flower that had reached the 15th level, it would still be maimed by Lin Yun's bombardment of flame bursts. A 10-meter-long petal was hit hard by a blast, causing a stinking, dark red liquid to leak out of the wound. This was rotten flower blood, which was an ingredient that many alchemists liked to use to compound poisons. Poisons that used rotten flower blood were extremely corrosive and would cause decomposition of tissues upon contact or ingestion. Even a great mage like Lin Yun wouldn't dare be careless. Relying on his temporary airborne state that he achieved by combining haste and levitation, Lin Yun used his mana liberally, casting flame bursts one after the other. In a short dozen seconds of magic array activation, Lin Yun rained down a dozen or so flame bursts. A violent explosion followed each of the flame bursts, echoed by mournful shrieks as dazzling flames splashed about. The rotten flower was struggling to come out into the open from underground a few times, but how could Lin Yun give it a chance to do so? He kept pushing it back with continued flame bursts. A rotten flower was a dangerous foe that had far more vitality and tenacity than any ordinary monster. If Lin Yun let it emerge into the open, it would take a lot more time and effort to deal with it. The amount of magic spring potion remaining in Lin Yun's bag wouldn't be enough if it dragged out too long. Thus, from start to finish, Lin Yun only used one spell, his instant cast Flame Burst. Flame Burst was a mana-intensive spell, and especially so when using the instant cast. The dozen-second bombardment ended up consuming half of Lin Yun's mana. Naturally, this shocking consumption of mana brought about even more shocking results. The imposing 15th level Rotten Flower never even managed to get out of its hole as it struggled one last time before its entire body went stiff. After the effects of the levitation spell wore off, Lin Yun dropped down from the sky. The Rotten Flower had already turned into a black lump. Just moments ago, this had been a lively and aggressive monster. After landing, Lin Yun quickly gathered the Rotten Flower's mana crystal. Afterwards, the ring on Lin Yun's right hand flashed as pure mana slowly poured into him. The elemental amber that Lin Yun got from the bone plane on his last trip was embedded in the ring. It would be reasonable to say that the best way to use elemental amber was to enchant a high mage spell onto it. This way, even a magic apprentice could use it to cast a spell that would normally only be usable by high mages. This would be an immense increase in power, but enchanting it with such a spell would be very costly, and furthermore, An archmage would have to personally do the enchanting, which would incur another huge fee. This wasn't something that Lin Yun could do right now, so he gave up on that method. Instead, he used mithril to create the ring and carved 2 miniature alchemy formations on it. One used during meditation to absorb mana, and one normally used to replenish mana. If 10 alchemists saw this, 9 of them would definitely shake their heads. This was too rough and was a waste of material as excellent as elemental amber. But Lin Yun was used to hard times, so he had no problem with it being rough. It was good enough for him as long as a magic tool worked. He wouldn't needlessly pursue appearances. For example, these 2 miniature arrays, absorption and replenishment, were more than enough to take advantage of the properties of the elemental amber. Although it was at most an excellent magic tool, when judged in terms of practicality, even most extraordinary or inheritance magic tools wouldn't be able to compare to this ring. As the elemental amber's radiance lit up the surroundings, the pure mana kept pouring into Lin Yun. The mana he had expended on the bombardment was now nearly all recovered. After finishing up, Lin Yun cast life detection again, and once he was convinced that there weren't any more rotting flowers hiding nearby, Lin Yun put the mana crystal into his bag and started looking for the cave. But he soon understood. Don't tell me. Lin Yun looked up, a lifeless expression on his face. Lin Yun clearly remembered the notes, saying something about entering a cave. But how the hell do I enter? Lin Yun looked up and saw the cave on the sheer cliff, and inwardly cursed those alchemists, let alone the fact that the cave was located on the cliff. The worst part was that Lin Yun could see no fewer than 4 nests. Swarms of toxic dragonflies were wandering around the entrance of the cave. Although toxic dragonflies were usually low-level monsters, these were swarms of them. The entrance of the cave alone was filled with at least 100 toxic dragonflies. Just looking at this would make anyone feel numb. Lin Yun truly wanted to confront the authors of those notes. Entering? What about entering? Don't mess with me. But Lin Yun understood after thinking about it. The alchemists who wrote those notes were at the very least at the high mage rank, with most of them being archmages. Such powerhouses didn't even need to worry about the dragonflies. The pressure emanating from an archmage would be enough to make these toxic dragonflies flee. No wonder they didn't care to write about these. But it's not like I can enter easily like they could. Lin Yun didn't have the tyrannical pressure of an archmage. The toxic dragonflies wouldn't leave him alone if they spotted him, let alone if he tried to get inside. Looks like I can only fight my way in. Thankfully, there was still a lot of mana in the elemental amber and the rotten flowers mana crystal, so he could still replenish his mana if needed. Lin Yun knew that this was an unavoidable fight and that he would have to settle it quickly. The longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous the situation would be. He still had more magic spring potions in his bag, but if he wasted time here and something happened in the cave later on, he would only have himself to blame. Once he decided on a plan, Lin Yun waved his hands a few times to cast some buffs. With the help of haste and lightweight, he moved like a nimble cat and climbed the cliff at a lightning speed. He was already at the entrance of the cave after just 20 seconds. But he had also alerted all the toxic dragonflies in the surroundings. A green, venomous swarm flew over, and it looked like myriad locusts were sweeping through the air. The entrance was narrow to begin with, and now that it was filled with a swarm of toxic dragonflies, even a buffed Lin Yun couldn't dodge their advance. But he had no intention to dodge. Lin Yun activated the instant cast magic array just as the first spurt of venom came out of the swarm. It was immediately followed by a gesture, and a thick ice wall materialized to block it. It wasn't too big or too small, perfectly protecting Lin Yun's body. Numerous spurts of venom landed on the ice, creating a sizzling sound that would make people shiver. Lin Yun managed to avoid being showered in venom, which was the reason behind his earlier apprehension. Besides the issue of quantity, the main problem was how corrosive the venom was, exceeding even the danger of unprocessed rotten flower blood. In an instant, over 100 splashes of venom accumulated on the ice wall, many of them overlapping, causing it to start melting at an alarming rate. In a mere 5 seconds, the thick ice wall erected by Lin Yun began to collapse. and Lin Yun would once again be exposed to the venom of the toxic dragonflies. But the ice wall managed to buy 5 seconds, allowing him to complete an incantation. Flame Barrier. It was also a defensive spell, but compared to Ice Wall, a mage-level spell, Flame Barrier was on a completely different level of existence. Flame Barrier was known as a divine art of fire magic, and its frightening temperature could even melt steel. More importantly, as long as Lin Yun was willing to keep pouring mana into it to maintain it, the Flame Barrier would never be extinguished unless Lin Yun himself took damage. A dozen toxic dragonflies had flown too close and directly fell into the Flame Barrier. These pitiful toxic dragonflies didn't even have time to shriek before turning into pitch-black husks. And this wasn't over. After raising the Flame Barrier, Lin Yun used one hand to control the raging flames while the other hand continued making gestures, matching up with the quick incantations he was still uttering. He was able to cast a second spell, Fire Arrow, and not just one or two of them. He shaped several dozens, close to 100. The narrow cave entrance had suddenly become covered in dazzling flames. The Flame Barrier separated Lin Yun from the massacre being wrought by the numerous fire arrows piercing through the air. After merging Fire Arrow into the magic array, it was no longer on the level of the simple spell used by fledgling mages. Under the support of the magic array, the might of the Fire Arrow dramatically increased. The dozens of arrows flying through the narrow cave were like a meat grinder, continuously killing all the scattered toxic dragonflies. But that shocking firepower also came with equivalently huge mana consumption. When a mage used Fire Arrow, they would at most summon 1 or 2 flaming arrows. Even with the support of meta magic, they would only be able to cast a dozen at most. It wasn't because they were unable to cast more, it was because they weren't willing to. Each added Fire Arrow would increase the mana consumption, as well as make controlling the spell more difficult. Someone like Lin Yun, capable of casting 100 flaming arrows in one Fire Arrow cast, was something that any great mage would never even thought possible. After all, this magnitude made the spell 100 times harder to control and consumed 100 times more mana. Even if it was originally only a low-tier mage spell, after being layered 100 times, the consumption and the control difficulty reached a frightening level. Lin Yun had replenished his mana earlier, but already used a huge amount once again. Half of his mana had been used in just a short moment, and the remaining half was quickly dwindling since he was still controlling the Flame Barrier. Lin Yun could only maintain this kind of limit-challenging casting for 30 seconds. After those 30 seconds, Lin Yun felt that the amount of mana within his body was dangerously low. But he didn't panic. The ring on his finger flashed once again, and pure mana poured into his body. With the elemental amber's timely mana replenishment, Lin Yun was able to cast yet another spell. He managed the feat of triple casting in such dire circumstances. Originally, the Flame Barrier and the Fire Arrow rain formed an impenetrable defense, but the battlefield underwent a shocking change with the appearance of Lin Yun's third spell, a second Flame Barrier. 2 Flame Barriers, one in front of the toxic dragonflies and one behind them, effectively locked the swarm in fire. Countless toxic dragonflies were flying back and fro, the heat from the spells making them restless. They wanted to rush out of the flame trap, but they were completely surrounded. They had no way out. The swarm of toxic dragonflies was forcefully condensed in a narrow space. Waiting for them was a fire arrow rain made up of 100 fire arrows. It only took a short moment before the swarm turned into a pile of pitch black coal. There was no more toxic dragonflies once Lin Yun's last fire arrow found its target. Huff! Lin Yun let out a long, exhausted sigh, using the wall to support himself as he fished out the rotten flower's mana crystal. He was deathly pale, and his forehead was covered in sweat. That fight might have seemed simple, getting rid of a few hundred toxic dragonflies in a few dozen seconds, but only Lin Yun himself knew how dangerous that fight had been. 3 spells cast, 1 use of the magic array, and the unfathomable triple casting. It was reaching Lin Yun's limits. It was no exaggeration to say that those toxic dragonflies brought out a huge pressure to Lin Yun, even greater than the Viper Nest's Great Mage Bell. Yes, the toxic dragonflies were level 10, and any 5th rank mage could easily kill a toxic dragonfly. But Lin Yun hadn't faced a single toxic dragonfly or two. He had faced a swarm made up of 4 nests, amounting to several hundred toxic dragonflies. If Lin Yun had made a mistake, like his flame barrier not trapping all the toxic dragonflies, or if he hadn't completed the 3rd spell, a different situation would have awaited him. Several hundred toxic dragonflies waiting outside the cave, ready to spurt venom. At that time, Lin Yun would have had no other choice but to brace himself and kill them all one by one. And it wouldn't have been a matter of a few dozen seconds, nor a few minutes. Lin Yun might have ran out of magic spring potions by then. Fortunately, nothing unexpected happened. From the first ice wall to the last fire arrow, each spell perfectly reached the effect Lin Yun wanted. Lin Yun recalled every detail of this battle while tightly holding the rotten flower mana crystal, slowly extracting the mana it contained and carefully purifying it before slowly pouring it into the magic array. Very few great mages would extract mana from mana crystal usually. It was due to the mana from the mana crystal being filled with impurities, and a moment of carelessness would bring danger to the great mage. A serious case might even involve mana backlash. But Lin Yun wasn't an ordinary great mage. After all, the only source of mana Lin Yun was able to access during the end of the magic era was from the Nether Storm. The mana coming from it was filled with much more impurities than a monster's mana crystal. Every time he meditated to extract mana from the Nether Storm felt like withstanding torture to him. How could the Lin Yun from that era be afraid of some mana crystal's impurities? It's just that the speed of extraction was somewhat slow. The entire mana extraction cost him another 3 bottles of mana spring. When Lin Yun stood up from the ground, the mana crystal of the rotten flower in his hand had already lost the last bit of luster. It felt like an ordinary stone. Lin Yun casually threw this empty mana crystal and lifted his hand to cast a light spell. The dark cave turned bright as daylight. The inside of the cave was filled with red fog, thicker than the outside. It felt as if it was being congealed there, and even the mana spring could only disperse the red fog in a few meters around him. Following the alchemist's notes, Lin Yun kept walking towards the depths of the cave for about 10 minutes, and sure enough, the path ahead became more spacious. Lin Yun knew that he was close to the place he was looking for. If the notes weren't wrong, then he only needed to move about 200 meters forward to reach the center of the cave. There, Lin Yun would be greeted by a tomb from the 3rd dynasty. Indeed, that was the second historical remain in the Poison Fog Canyon. Unlike the temple that Sauce wanted to explore, this tomb would only be discovered a millennium later. The Cloud Tower would already be the strongest force of the kingdom, and a great mage born from the Cloud Tower would casually tour the Poison Fog Canyon. But he would then encounter a fight at the entrance of the Poison Fog Canyon and would be severely injured. Relying on a few bottles of magic spring during his escape, he ultimately entered the unknown cave. No one knew what the great mage encountered in the cave. In any case, when he left the Poison Fog Canyon, he was holding a true spirit magic tool that was an existence equivalent to an archmage. The enemy guarding the entrance of the Poison Fog Canyon didn't last more than 10 seconds in front of a true spirit magic tool and turned into a pile of ashes. Afterwards, the great mage returned to the Cloud Tower and wrote a report on his discovery. That report immediately caught the attention of the Cloud Tower, and 3 master alchemists came to the Poison Fog Canyon. They made a discovery at the location the great mage found the true spirit magic tool at. That discovery was somewhat lucky. Out of the 3 master alchemists, 2 were archmages, and the last one was actually a great mage. And that great mage's magic rune was in fact the same magic array Lin Yun had been using. Originally, that great mage only had 2 arrays, but after studying in the Poison Fog Canyon for 3 months, that great mage had 5. He had the power to contest against a high mage with decent fighting strength. When Lin Yun had read that note, He had been quite surprised at that great mage's strange power-up. After all, the magic array could be said to be the most complex and most detailed magic rune. Every small upgrade needed quite a lot of investment. Even if the current Lin Yun's knowledge far surpassed that era's magic knowledge, if he wanted to upgrade his magic array from 2 to 5, it would take him 3 years. But that great mage took only 3 months. What kind of idea was that? This was the equivalent of a 12-fold shortening. This was the reason Lin Yun cared about the Poison Fog Canyon. In contrast, Lin Yun didn't have much hope for that spirit magic tool. After all, a true spirit magic tool was different from a spiritual magic tool. A spiritual magic tool only had some spirituality and could keep fighting based on its relation with his owner. Intrinsically, it was still a magic tool. But a true spirit magic tool was different. A true spirit magic tool represented the pinnacle of alchemy. Any alchemist who managed to craft a true spirit magic tool could confer a soul to the magic tool. They were known as creators. Only 3 true spirit magic tools appear at the peak of the magic civilization, and the alchemists who made these true spirit magic tools had supreme positions. Even heaven mages would lower themselves in front of them. After all, true spirit magic tools had genuine life of their own that reached the very limit of alchemy. Each incarnation of a true spirit magic tool was different. To become the true master of the true spirit magic tool, one had to become its master by receiving the approval of the true spirit magic tool's incarnation. But in reality, there were almost no true spirit magic tool that wished to change its master. Apart from the alchemists that created them, they would almost never accept a second master. That great mage of the Cloud Tower must have had heaven-defying luck. That's the only possible explanation Lin Yun saw. He wondered if he would have such fate. Compared to an illusory, true spirit magic tool, the reincarnation that was able to increase the amount of magic arrays from 2 to 5 was much more practical. Under the protection of the magic spring, Lin Yun went a few hundred meters deep in the cave before finally finding the mentioned stone tablet. The stone tablet wasn't that imposing. However, words in Nesser language were inscribed on it. It's actually Nesser characters. The inscription on the stone tablet brought some sort of shock to Lin Yun. There would be no issue with the Nesser runes being there if it was a newly built tomb. After all, it was already considered to be relatively widespread among mages. High mages and stronger mage powerhouses would usually study such Nesser runes. But this tomb was a tomb of the 3rd dynasty. In the 3rd dynasty, only the members of the royal family could understand the Nesser runes. That was a dynasty ruled by bloodlines. The ranks between different bloodlines were strict, and the mages who weren't part of the royal family, no matter how powerful or otherworldly they were, couldn't get a chance to learn the Nesser language. Only one outcome awaited them if they were found guilty of learning the Nesser language in secret, immediate execution. So, it's a member of the 3rd dynasty's royal family. After a short surprise, Lin Yun's eyes fell onto the stone tablet once again. Although the inscription on top of the stone tablet was in Nesser language, it was far less complicated than the magic knowledge Lin Yun usually came in contact with. Thus, Lin Yun spent less than 10 minutes to decipher the inscription on the stone tablet. From the stone tablet's inscriptions, the person buried, there should be a prince who should have lived during the early stage of the 3rd dynasty. It could be seen from some grammatical parts that were commonly used during that time. Lin Yun relied on those details to make an approximative guess of the tomb's origin. Strange, after reading the inscription, Lin Yun was filled with doubt. Normally, an ordinary tomb inscription would be a review of the tomb owner's life. Even if it wasn't detailed, it would surely carry some important bits of information. But this stone tablet didn't say anything about the prince's life. It was as if the prince's life was blank. However, Lin Yun understood after figuring out the identity of the tomb owner. No wonder such a shocking amount of wealth was hidden in a temple in the Poison Fog Canyon. The 3rd dynasty's royal family believed in the Haiba dragon god of war and power. Among nonsense legends, the Haiba dragon god was one of the 2 dragons at the birth of No Scent. It was in charge of war and power. Someone who obtained the favor of the Haiba dragon god would have the power to triumph in every battle. The Haiba dragon god's most loved offering was wealth. Whether it was dazzling gold or glistening gems, they would both make the Haiba dragon god happy. How much care a follower would receive depended on how much wealth he would offer. A prince's offering to the Haiba dragon god could naturally be described as outstanding. Thinking about this, Lin Yun was naturally looking forward to exploring this tomb. After all, the Third Dynasty was famous for their lavish burials. Even when a civilian died, they would be buried with all their savings, let alone members of the royal family. Every royal tomb could be considered a huge treasure. Who knew how many powerful mages became rich by being grave robbers during the peak of the magic era? Even a tomb of a member of the side branch of the royal family would make a high mage rich overnight. That was a crazy era. Almost no member of the Third Dynasty royal family would escape the fate of being disturbed by the livings. From emperor to prince, from duke to baron, people used this method to do an archaeological study of the Third era's high society. That was a crazy era, but it was also an era that would make one rich overnight. During that era, mages began to make an inventory and discovered that Third Dynasty's royals amounted to almost half of Nascent's wealth. Once he was done reading the inscription, Lin Yun started carving all kinds of marks on the inside of the cave. Every Third Dynasty family royal tomb had fixed rules. These might be unknown to people of this era, but not to Lin Yun. This was due to those grave robbers during the peak of the magic era. They excavated nearly all of the Third era's royal tombs. What kind of tomb were built for people of different status? What kind of rules were established for what kind of tomb? All of these secrets were already classified into a specialized school of magic knowledge, becoming a mage's essential knowledge at the time. Although Lin Yun didn't specialize in learning the kind of knowledge, he had seen countless explanations about it in the decaying library. It was to the point that he could easily figure out the layout of a prince's tomb. What Lin Yun had to do now was marking out the position of every room of the tomb. That should be the prince's resting place. I should leave it for later. If it was an ordinary tomb, then the priority would be to dig up the dead's resting place, because that would be the place the tomb owner was sleeping in, and there would be buried the most precious items of the entire tomb. But the tomb he was now excavating was the tomb of a prince of the Third Era. Lin Yun clearly remembered that beside being extremely proficient in magic knowledge, they were also very good with bloodline curse magic. That was a power coming from their bloodline. The purest the bloodline, the stronger the spell power would be. Moreover, that power wouldn't disappear after their death, remaining lingering like a ghost. Countless of those grave diggers during the peak of the magic era died to that power. Lin Yun wasn't sure he could withstand this bloodline curse magic. I should first start with the surroundings. Lin Yun made his decision and chose to first start with the outer part of the tomb. Usually, the tomb's surroundings wouldn't have items that were usually buried with the dead. However, it was also unlikely to be dangerous for the same reason. He was going to open up the tomb's surroundings first, but more importantly, he would make sure he could retreat anytime. Nothing could be done about it. He only had 10 magic spring left in his bag. Counting the ones he would have to use on his way back, he would only be able to stay 40 minutes here at most. With such a short time, even if Lin Yun entered the resting place of the prince, he would likely not have much gains. Rather than going on a wild good chase, it would be better to first prepare a way out. That way, if he met any danger, he would be able to timely retreat. As for profits, it wasn't that urgent. From his talk with Sauce, he gained 3 months. 3 months were enough to excavate the prince's tomb. Once he made a decision, Lin Yun quickly sprang into action. To be honest, for a powerful existence like a great mage, the matter of digging up a tomb was very simple. Even if Lin Yun didn't do the job himself, he unhurriedly chanted a few sentences to summon a few rock puppets. These stiff and slow elemental life forms were almost useless outside of providing cover during battle. However, they were extremely useful when it came to digging a grave. Rock puppets moved very slowly, but their strength couldn't be matched, and they would never tire. Lin Yun only needed to add a sharpness enchantment to the limbs of each puppet. With the help of the enchantment, the few rock puppets would quickly clear up the path leading to the core of the mountain. Lin Yun couldn't help shivering as he felt a gloomy, cold wind blowing out of the passage. Suddenly, Lin Yun heard some mournful scream. It felt as if a ghost would rush out from the passage as a gloomy aura filled the mountain. Try to scare people. Thankfully, Lin Yun was prepared and let out a light spell he had been preparing. In a flash, the entire mountain was lit up with dazzling lights. The originally gloomy aura was swept clean in a split second. Once everything was over, Lin Yun sighed in relief. Lin Yun knew that it was the power of the bloodline curse. Each tomb of the royal family was protected by that kind of power. What affected Lin Yun a second ago was just a trace leaking from the tomb. He would be able to feel the true horror of that power once he went deeper in. Lin Yun didn't stop chanting after the light spell dispelled that sudden gloomy aura. Incantations kept coming out of Lin Yun's mouth. Lighten, haste, a few rock puppets, and once he was done, he let off a mage vision to make the puppet's vision temporarily linked to his own. Afterwards, Lin Yun passed down a few commands to the rock puppets. Several rock puppets entered the passage, and by relying on the floating effect of haste and lighten, he steadily left the tomb surroundings. Lin Yun had summoned a total of 5 rock puppets. They didn't move together after entering the tomb surroundings, but scattered instead. Each rock puppet explored one direction, and with the mage vision, Lin Yun was able to understand the layout of the entire tomb. The entire tomb was like a huge palace. 5 hasted rock puppets searched the surroundings for 10 minutes. They explored a small area, and just as Lin Yun thought, there was no harvest nor any danger. Apart from several signs of the place being from the 3rd dynasty, there was nothing noteworthy. After drinking another bottle of Magic Spring, Lin Yun assessed that he would only be able to maintain the rock puppet summoning for a few more minutes. He thought for a bit before deciding to interrupt Mage Vision and personally enter the tomb to take a look. The rock puppets had already made sure that there shouldn't be any danger in the passage. But before he could stop the channeled spell, the vision he got from one of the rock puppet had suddenly changed. What happened? The rock puppet field of view had changed so suddenly. Just a moment ago, it was looking at a spacious and desolate area, but now it was a garden. It was a lush and verdant flower garden. Lin Yun frowned. He had never relaxed while looking through the 5 rock puppets' eyes, always remaining focused. Yet, in a split second, the sight changed without him noticing. Did it touch some spatial trap? It seemed unlikely. If it was a spatial trap, some spatial fluctuation would appear when the trap was triggered. Lin Yun was sure that he would have been able to detect these spatial distortions. Regardless of how small they were, they would never escape his sight. But if it wasn't a spatial distortion, what was it? How could a large rock puppet suddenly change location on his watch? And in such a particular location? After all, the whole tomb was covered by the prince's bloodline curse. Even the passage leading to the tomb leaked some traces of the curse, which almost made a great mage like Lin Yun hallucinate. The power of the curse where the rock puppets were was 10 times stronger. How could a lush garden appear in a place filled with such a potent death energy? Hold on. Death energy. Something suddenly flashed in Lin Yun's mind. This place, it couldn't be one of the legendary Death Garden. He had seen the words Death Garden in the notes of a necromancer. That necromancer was named Sandro. He was one of the 3 existences during the peak of the magic civilization who managed to conquer the undead plane. It even came to the point that very few people would dare to mention his name. Everyone would address him as Sovereign of Death. That Sovereign of Death once wrote about his youth in his notes, how he mistakenly entered a death garden and set foot on the necromancer path. Unfortunately, that Sovereign of Death didn't describe the death garden in details. He only mentioned that the death garden was a treasury left aside by the deads for the livings. It was a place full of endless opportunities and dangers. Nothing could be done about it. The notes that the Sovereign of Death left behind were mostly about his understanding of necromancy. There were only a few sentences about the Death Garden. But later on, the notes fell in the hands of other mages, and after changing hands quite a few times, it was put in the decaying library before the era of mana exhaustion. When Lin Yun saw it, it was already filled with a lot of mages' comments and annotations. Among them were speculations about the Death Garden. There were several mages of different eras who believed that the Death Garden was born out of a large amount of death energy. It lay between true and false. It could exist. It could also be illusory. Not only were there a lot of dangers within, it also had various res sources. When he read those notes, Lin Yun felt the content novel and interesting, but he didn't take it seriously. But now, the rock puppet's sudden change of environment made Lin Yun recall these notes. If that place was really a death garden, thinking about it, Lin Yun had the rock puppet look at the surroundings, but his expression turned blank just as the puppet's head turned. He couldn't help smiling bitterly. He had suddenly lost connection with the rock puppet, not just with the one that entered the death garden, but with all 5 of them. He didn't have to think much to understand that the summoning spell had reached its limit. It seemed that if he wanted to get to the bottom of it and explore the death garden, he had to go himself. Fortunately, the surroundings had already been explored by the puppets and no dangers had been found. The only thing he needed to pay attention to was the death garden, but that strange place existing between true and false couldn't be explained with common sense. In any case, he would only be able to understand it once he checked it. After making his decision, Lin Yun chanted a few spells, haste and lighten. Lin Yun didn't rush in this time. He used some mana to cast a vine spell. Vine was a low-level spell with no fighting strength, but it had quite a few applications, like when he had used it to get Ferio out of the frozen swamp. Lin Yun's vine spell had a similar purpose, but instead of dragging someone out, he planned to drag himself out. If he met any danger, Lin Yun would only have to give a command, and that vine would come from the entrance to smoothly extract him from the dangerous situation. Once this was done, Lin Yun lightly jumped, and with the floating momentum brought by Lighten, he flew above the ground of the tomb. The moment his feet touched the ground, Lin Yun felt the power of the bloodline curse. It was far thicker than the trace he had felt earlier. It attacked him the moment he touched the ground, and a strange scene appeared before his eyes. 10 women wearing white dress were standing around Lin Yun, laughing strangely. The ground under his feet was turning soft, just like a swamp, but when he looked down, he only saw blood and limbs. He tried to struggle out of that bloody hell, but the strange laughter of those 10 white-dressed women filled Lin Yun's ears as they tried to drag him down to the depths of that bloody hell. "Fuck off," Lin Yun coldly snorted. His right hand fluctuated as the mind defense he had prepared was sent out. In a flash, only a silver ripple came out. Whether it was the women or the bloody hell, they both instantly disappeared. Bloodline curses are truly vicious. Lin Yun wiped the sweat off his forehead. Even if he knew that it was all an illusion, that frightening scene still made Lin Yun somewhat fearful. An illusion targeting one's mind was one of the most dangerous. If he made a mistake, he would sink in a never-ending illusion and turn into a mindless corpse, forever unable to break off from the bloodline curse control. Although he had some defenses against mind attacks, Lin Yun still didn't dare to stay in this place for long. With the help of haste, Lin Yun only spent a few minutes before reaching the place the puppet had been at before the change happened. "It's here." Lin Yun could clearly see the long hallway from his position. Both sides of the hallway were covered in thick stone walls which were adorned by a few light yellow oil lamps. No cold wind came from the hallway. If it wasn't for the flames flickering within the oil lamps, it would feel as if time had been frozen. Lin Yun's shadow was dragged pretty far by the oil lamps, swaying along the flickers of the lamps. Lin Yun took a deep breath before slowly walking forward. He knew the place the puppet had been at before its surroundings changed, the end of the hallway. A painting was hung at the end of the corridor. On the painting was a gorgeously dressed lady. But for some reason, Lin Yun felt that the eyes of the lady were focused on him and that her faint smile was trying to convey something. This feeling made Lin Yun more vigilant. Although Lin Yun hadn't stopped walking, his magic array was already prepared. 5 spells, for metamagics, ready to be used at any time. 50 meters, 40 meters, 30 meters, 20 meters. Lin Yun was getting closer to the end of the hallway. When Lin Yun stepped into the last 10 meters, those lamps suddenly got extinguished. In a flash, the entire hallway became pitch black as an ear-screeching laughter rose up. Lin Yun didn't think and instantly cast an ice wall, intercepting an attack. At the same time, the magic array activated and a huge mana fluctuation filled the hallway. A tempest of flames came out as Flamestorm was cast. This was the only Great Mage level spell that Lin Yun had merged into the magic array. Lin Yun was using his strongest firepower at this moment. Even the air seemed to combust under the pressure of the extreme heat. Thanks to the radiance of the flames, Lin Yun was finally able to clearly see. Long red hair had pierced his ice wall, and the lady in the painting was slowly coming out. Lin Yun clearly saw the lady coming out of the painting. Her bright eyes had turned into soul fire, blood slowly falling down from her eye sockets, leaving behind bloody marks on her beautiful face. Her long red hair was like red snakes, emitting some hissing sounds. A cold wind blew through the hallway, carrying a hoarse and sinister laughter. In an instant, the hallway was filled with a thick, bloody smell. Blood Banshee? Lin Yun frowned. Although he already knew that the painting was strange, he never expected it to be that strange. That was a blood banshee. Even among undead life forms, blood banshees were known for their evil ways. Every blood banshee had inevitably experienced endless pain and torture. It was said that they suffered enough torture for their souls to be completely ripped apart before they could transform into a vicious ghost and mature into a blood banshee. They were level 16 at the very least and had all kinds of abilities. Even peak great mages weren't willing to deal with blood banshees. Even if they ended up winning, it wouldn't be without a cost. So unlucky, Lin Yun inwardly cursed. He didn't stop moving his hands, doing a few gestures and controlling the storm of flames to block the blood banshee's attacks. Lin Yun's magic array had merged a total of 4 metamagics and 5 spells, of which Flamestorm was the only Great Mage level spell. Under the effect of the magic array, that Flamestorm's might was already approaching high rank. But Lin Yun clearly knew that even if this Flamestorm could pin down the Blood Banshee for some time and give her some injuries, it still wouldn't be able to kill the Blood Banshee. The Blood Banshee was an undead life form. Her power originated from her soul shattering. She might dread flames and loathe light, but the only way to kill a Blood Banshee was to destroy that shattered soul. Sure enough, Lin Yun's Flamestorm forced the Blood Banshee in a corner. Within the crazily rotating storm, countless flames were burning the Blood Banshee's body. Due to the magic array's strengthening, the might of each flame wasn't inferior to a flame burst, but only caused the Blood Banshee to let out a blood-curdling scream. Lin Yun felt pain even with his mind protection. That was the scream of the Banshee directly attacking the mind and soul. If it had been in Thousand Sail City, that scream would have been enough to kill hundreds of people. The hallway still felt shaky after the Banshee scream was over. Countless lamps had fallen from the stone walls, and cracks had appeared on Lin Yun's ice wall. No wonder no one is willing to provoke a Blood Banshee. Lin Yun was frowning. The Blood Banshee was such a strange life form. It really was nauseating. Even if his mind defenses could withstand the scream, the intensity almost made him deaf. Lin Yun Flamestorm exploded up when the Banshee's scream shattered his ice wall. Bright flames flew as a rumbling sound echoed. The might of that explosion was far more astonishing than the previous flame bursts and fire arrow rain. However, Lin Yun's expression became heavy. He had noticed the shadow flitting across the flames. That was naturally the shadow of the Blood Banshee. The hallway lost its only source of light after the explosion of the flame storm, plunging in the darkness once again. Lin Yun's reaction could be considered quite fast, a light spell immediately following the descent in darkness. But the Blood Banshee's speed was far faster than Lin Yun. Lin Yun only heard a gust of wind as the shadow swept over. Before the light could blossom, a red snake was already flying over. Only a bang could be heard as the light and that red snake exploded together. The long hallway was once more covered in darkness. So fast, Lin Yun's heart tightened. He hurriedly put up an ice fire shield. A blue and red radiance firmly guarded Lin Yun. Lin Yun knew that this kind of dark area was the preferred fighting environment of undead life forms, especially for a frightening monster like existence, such a blood banshee. Once in the dark, their fighting strength will be doubled. This was too disadvantageous to himself. The only thing Lin Yun could do right now was using the ice-fire shield to protect himself. And wait until the magic array spell combination was completed. The blood banshee launched her real attack when the magic array combined the spells. Her monster-like speed even made Lin Yun, who had been using a magic array-merged haste, breathless. The red and blue radiances flickered very fast as the ice and fire shield started being overworked. Gasping breath, frantic roars. That dark hallway felt like one of those monster arena. The blood banshee's sharp nails ripped through the air, leaving behind some sharp sounds. Lin Yun simply didn't have the time to cast a spell. He could only rely on his ice-fire shield to protect himself, only able to instant cast 1 or 2 spells from time to time to counterattack. That was Lin Yun. If it was another first-rank Great Mage, he or she would have already died under the hands of the blood banshee. That was aberration among undead life forms. Even a peak Great Mage might not be willing to rashly provoke such a life form. They not only had monster-like speed, they also had all kinds of abilities that could target one's mind and soul. This was a nightmare for mages. Only someone like Lin Yun, someone with so much battle experience that they couldn't gain more, will be able to force a blood banshee in a stalemate in a dark and tight hallway. At this moment, Lin Yun entered a state of extreme composure. Darkness, restricted space, an extremely aggressive blood banshee. It was as if those didn't exist. Lin Yun's mind was entirely focused on the ice-fire shield. The 2 flickering radiants had already exceeded the ice-fire shield's limit. Regardless how fierce the blood banshee offensive was, the ice-fire shield would always appear the right place at the right time. Countless red snakes, lightning-fast sharp nails, none of those managed to reach Lin Yun. Every attack was intercepted by the ice-fire shield. The entire fight kept going for no less than 10 minutes. After Lin Yun drank another bottle of magic spring, he finally merged 2 spells with a metamagic. It's time to reverse the tide. Lin Yun smiled. The flame barrier he had prepared a while ago was cast. The high-temperature flames forced the blood banshee away, giving enough time for Lin Yun to start his first incantation of the fight. The incantation wasn't very long, but it was strangely divided into 2 parts. One was the flame spear, while the other was the frost lance. Fire and ice, 2 opposite type of magic, appeared in the same spell. If it came out, all of no scent would be shocked. This was considered impossible. Even the ice-fire shield, which could be considered to be a spell of ice and fire, was in fact just a channeling of both the ice shield and fire shield. Ice magic and fire magic were 2 diametrically opposed extremes. Only an archmage could operate both at the same time. Even high mage couldn't do it because their power was insufficient to curb the conflict between the 2 powers. That kind of conflict was no joke. A moment of carelessness and the mana would collapse. High mages couldn't do it, let alone great mages. But now blue light flickered in his left hand, a dazzling red light in his right hand. This was a sign of convergence between 2 types of magic power. This was an extremely strange scene, and yet it was happening in the tomb of a prince of the 3rd dynasty. This was all because Lin Yun's magic conducting rune was the magic array. 2 spell of completely different attributes merged with the metamagic elemental burst. That explosion of power far surpassed the previous flamestorm. This wasn't the might of a single spell, but the might of the magic array, one of the most powerful magic conducting rune in the magic civilization. It was revealing its might at this moment. Flame Spear, Frost Lance, completely merged in the magic array. The moment Lin Yun chanted the spell, a dazzling light shone in the dark hallway. It was followed by a blood-curdling scream. This wasn't a banshee scream aimed at his mind or soul, but the last scream of the banshee. Silence filled the hallway. The soul fire turned bright once more as snake after snake died, turning into beautiful red hair once again. The bloody scar on her face disappeared, revealing her beautiful face on again. Finally, the blood banshee turned into a black mist and returned to the painting. Phew! Lin Yun let out a relieved breath. This fight could be said to be the hardest fight ever since Lin Yun transmigrated. The Blood Banshee's threat was far higher than anything he met before. But after a tough fight, it was time for the rewards. Lin Yun picked up the soul essence left on the ground. That was the crystallization of the Blood Banshee's shattered soul. The mana contained within far surpassed the mana contained in the Rotten Flowers mana crystal. Most importantly, the soul essence of the Blood Banshee was very likely to retain some of the Blood Banshee abilities. It would give him great benefits on his magic path if he was able to study it carefully. But to Lin Yun, what was more important was the Death Garden behind the Blood Banshee. Lin Yun clearly remembered that there was one reason why Sandro was called the Sovereign of Death. That powerful necromancer's control over undead life forms was far higher than his peers. Sandro never told anyone how he gained this ability, but many mages guessed. Sandro's ability most likely came from the Death Garden. The ability Sandro had in those years was known as Undead Contract. Sandro was able to sign a contract with all undead life forms. He was even able to ignore the level difference in some cases. It was said that Sandro had a bone dragon fight for him when he was a high mage, an archmage level life form. When Sandro became an archmage, his undead legion made all his enemies feel despair. That was the most powerful undead army since the birth of No Scent. Sandro had conquered over 10 planes with this army, including the famous Undead Plane. To a necromancer, an ability like the Undead Contract could only be described as heaven-defying. Even Lin Yun felt that if he came in contact with this ability, he would be unable to resist the urge to become a necromancer. Naturally, there was very little chance of this happening. Sandro wasn't the only one in No Scent history who had been able to enter a Death Garden, but he was the one who had the greatest gains. As for the others, some obtained good abilities, and some only got resources. A Death Garden was like a slot machine. No one knew what they would get. Lin Yun put the Blood Banshee's soul essence into his bag. He then took out a bottle of Magic Spring and drank it. He walked to the end of the hallway once he was done. Under the radiance of a light spell, Lin Yun could clearly see that there was nothing at the end of the hallway beside the painting. It was the same thick stone wall, and there was no difference from the rest of the hallway. But Lin Yun knew that this place was definitely different. He knew that this was the place the rock puppet had been looking at before its surroundings changed. Lin Yun carefully examined the thick stone wall for a moment before a smile appeared on his face. So it is like that. Lin Yun didn't hesitate and started walking to the end of the hallway. It was strange. There was definitely a wall there, but when his foot reached the wall, it passed through. It was as if the wall had never existed to begin with. Worthy of a Death Garden. Lin Yun went straight through the stone wall and reached a verdant and lush garden. Lin Yun had noticed that this wasn't a stone wall. Even the hallway might be part of the illusion. This was all an illusion created by the Death Garden. The rock puppet didn't experience this because it didn't have a soul. Illusions had no effect on it. But what Lin Yun saw was the wall at the end of the hallway. But an illusion was an illusion. It didn't have the same feeling as something real. When Lin Yun stood there, he could see the stone wall, but the mana he emitted wasn't obstructed. As a mage, Lin Yun had the most faith in his mana. This trust even surpassed the trust in his own eyes. He knew that sometimes his eyes could deceive himself, but his own mana would never deceive him. Thus he unhesitantly walked over. He then saw a lush garden. At this moment, Lin Yun at the edge of the garden, he only needed one step to experience everything Sandro experienced. But Lin Yun stood there for a long time, not taking that final step. He was recalling everything he learned about Death Garden. There was definitely a lot of people who entered Death Gardens in No Scent history, and Sandro was obviously among the most influential ones. This was why Lin Yun thought of him first when he saw the Death Garden. But the most influential didn't mean the most valuable source of information. Nothing could be done about it. For some reason, Sandro only left a few sentences about the Death Garden in his notes. Lin Yun thought about it for a bit, but he decided that these sentences had no value. What about danger and opportunity coexisting? Everyone know about that. Lin Yun went through his memories for quite some time before finding what he wanted in the notes of Master Craftsman. Compared to Sandro, the conqueror of the undead plane, that master was certainly weak. In fact, if it wasn't for that master craftsman participating in the construction of the shelter tower, his notes wouldn't have qualified to be put in the library. Furthermore, the rewards that Master gained from the Death Garden were far from good compared to Sandro. After all, Sandro not only gained the undead contract ability, he also got the soul stone every necromancer yearned for. That was an heaven-defying existence that could transform soul fire into mana. With the soul stone in hand and the support of his undead legion, Sandro had close to unlimited mana. As for that master craftsman, he only gained some uncommon resources in the Death Garden. They both found a Death Garden, but the differences were huge. But in Lin Yun's eyes, that unlucky master craftsman was far more lovable than Sandro, because regardless of his luck, this lovable guy left behind some clues. And it wasn't like the danger and opportunity rubbish. Lin Yun recalled that Master mentioning the Death Garden was a real, yet dangerous illusion. Every person who entered the Death Garden would meet different illusions. Moreover, after a few years, the Master added some speculations about the Death Garden at the end of the notes. That Master felt that each choice picked in the illusion might decide the final reward. But even if this was mere speculations, it was 100 times better than Sandro's nonsense. After making sure he recalled the notes properly, Lin Yun took a deep breath. He drank another magic spring before taking the last step. Just as Lin Yun took this step, a rotten smell assaulted his senses. The originally verdant and lush garden turned into a field of corpses. Rotten bodies everywhere, dried blood covering the ground. A frightening sound resounded as his feet touched the ground. Above his head was a cold crescent moon. In front of him was a precipitous slope, and behind him was a terrifying precipice. And the most frightening part was the group of skeleton warriors at the bottom of the slope, clumsily charging their way forward. Fuck, how come there are so many of you? Lin Yun was startled. That amount of skeleton warriors far exceeded what he could have imagined. In contrast, the gathering of skeleton warriors at the Bone Plain Nether Iron Vein was not worth mentioning. It was just a small 100 skeleton warriors. What he was now facing was a sea of skeleton warriors, 1,000 at the very least. What should I do? The first thought in Lin Yun's mind was using Lighten to jump off the cliff. But just as he was about to chant the spell, he recalled the Master's notes. This was a true and dangerous illusion. This sounded like a contradiction, but Lin Yun knew that the important part of this sentence was the word true. What did a true undead army look like? Sandro's notes taught Lin Yun this part. Lin Yun was certain that if he used Lighten to get down the cliff, what would await him would most likely be a large group of gargoyles, or a dozen obsidian statues, or even some bone dragons. A place like a Death Garden wasn't something that could be explained with logic. It was a place where a huge amount of death energy was continuously converging, transforming into an extremely strange Death Garden. The Death Garden itself was the embodiment of death power. On a certain level, there was also the trace of the Shadow Law. Facing such a strange existence, how could he get what he wanted with a cheap trick? The first wave of skeleton warriors were already rushing up the slope, raising rusted scimitars. Lin Yun didn't have much time to think. He chanted a few sentences, and a flame barrier was quickly erected at the bottom of the slope. Lin Yun was a great mage now. His strength was 10 times higher compared to when he had entered the Bone Plain. That flame barrier rose up in the middle of the first wave of skeleton warriors, blossoming with terrifying might. A dozen skeleton warriors turned to ashes before they could even react. Moreover, the appearance of that flame barrier also gave rise to chaos among the skeleton warriors. The fear of flames was instinctive in all undead life forms. Cannon fodder-like life form, like the skeleton warriors, weren't an exception. The skeleton warriors which were facing the flame barrier wanted to retreat, while the one behind them tried to rush up. Chaos ensued. Lin Yun took advantage of the chaos to complete his flame storm incantation. He only heard a bang before chaos appeared amidst the skeleton warriors. A sphere of flames appeared among the skeleton warriors, spinning frantically as temperature instantly rose up. It was like a tornado made up of flames, swallowing everything on its path. Only ashes were left in the path of the flame storm. The spell lasted 10 seconds, reducing over 100 skeleton warriors to ashes. The entire first wave of skeleton warriors was almost decimated. But he knew that this was only the beginning. Sure enough, as the first wave was cleared by Lin Yun, the remaining skeleton warriors started climbing the slope. The closest one was less than 100 meters away, and there were 10 times more than the previous wave. Lin Yun knew that once surrounded by this amount of skeleton warriors, not even a high mage would be able to survive. No one beneath the archmage rank would be able to survive a siege of 1,000 skeleton warriors. That was a sea of undeads. If one tried to surrender, well, they would be drowning. The only thing Lin Yun could do was raising his casting speed to its pinnacle and overwork his magic array to keep casting fire magic continuously. It was a method Lin Yun wasn't completely clueless about as he recalled the knowledge he had on Flame Tyrant Max. If not for the skeleton warriors being too numerous, Lin Yun would have considered this fight to be a good opportunity. Every fire spell gave him more understanding of the Flame Tyrant style. In the end, Lin Yun even felt that he had fell into Max's shoes. It was like that fight between the Flame Tyrant and the undead army at Ghost Town. Skeleton warriors falling one after the other, quickly being replaced by their brethren. The entire fight felt like a battle of patience and willpower to Lin Yun. Lin Yun didn't even remember how many spells he had cast, nor how many times his mana had been exhausted. He only remembered extracting mana from the Blood Banshee soul essence every time he ran out. Fortunately, the Blood Banshee was a ghost life form. The mana contained within her soul essence was far more pure than a similar mana crystal. Lin Yun actually had an easier time absorbing mana from within, except from one problem. Absorbing mana from it caused some nauseating negative feelings. His mind would become restless every time. But he couldn't deal with that right now. If the Blood Banshee was the most troublesome enemy he met since coming to this era, then this fight was the longest fight he experienced. The icy crescent moon already fell quite a bit as the first ray of sun started peeking from the eastern sky. The greater part of the night passed. Lin Yun was still slaughtering endlessly, the entire slope filled with ashes and burnt broken bones. A fire spell came out of Lin Yun's hand, followed by a skeleton warrior falling to the ground. This felt like an endless battle. Lin Yun was still casting another spell when the sun had reached its peak, but when the spell was cast, Lin Yun discovered that there was no more skeleton warriors standing on the slope. Finally over, Lin Yun was panting. He took out the soul essence from his pocket and absorbed mana from it one last time. His legs shook as he stumbled and then sat on the floor. That fight had been too long, at least half a day. Lin Yun had been continuously casting, continuously fighting. No other great mage would have been able to handle it. This was far from what a first-rank great mage could handle. Thankfully, it was finally over. The surroundings changed just as Lin Yun sat. The rotten corpses disappeared. The dried-up blood faded away, both replaced by a verdant and lush garden. Lin Yun knew that he passed the Death Garden's illusion. He was anxiously looking forward to the imminent reward. That master wrote at the end of his notes that it was likely that every choice made in the illusion might influence the rewards. Lin Yun thought about it carefully. He didn't make any choice in the illusion. He simply fought from the beginning till the end. What kind of reward would he get? And walked out of the illusion. The lush garden's trees started withering. The verdant lawns slowly turned yellow. The flower shrubs withered one after the other, and even the wings of the butterflies fluttering in the garden stiffened as they fell to their deaths. It felt as if the originally bright and lush Death Garden was dying, turning into a frighteningly sinister tomb. It was all due to the fading of the death energy surrounding this place. A strange existence like the Death Garden was the produce of a huge amount of death energy. Now that this energy was dissipating, the garden would naturally follow. Lin Yun leaned on a withered tree trunk, calmly looking at the change. He didn't know how much time passed, but he was suddenly startled. He quickly put his hand in his bag to retrieve another magic spring. But as he was about to drink it, he discovered that the fragrant green fog was still surrounding him, stopping the red fog from the ancient tomb from approaching within 10 meters. This discovery gave Lin Yun a whole new level of understanding towards the Death Garden. It was worthy of being a strange existence born of death energy. He had obviously fought in the illusion for half a day, but Lin Yun's magic spring effect hadn't dissipated. In other words, the Death Garden already reached the level of distorting time. Lin Yun wasn't even sure if he had been transported to an illusion, or if it had been all in his mind. Time distortion, spatial movement, how frightening was that? But fortunately, he cleared it. Lin Yun thought about it with some lingering fear while watching the last petal withering in the Death Garden. The Death Garden completely faded, leaving only ruins as far as one could see. Black soil, rotten trees, dried-up spring, as well as a gray stone tablet the size of a palm. An unsightly smile appeared on Lin Yun's face, giving off a sad feeling. At first, Lin Yun couldn't help being overjoyed when the Death Garden disappeared without leaving any magic material, thinking that he wasn't as unlucky as that master craftsman. But Lin Yun couldn't feel happy when his eyes fell on that stone tablet. It was devoid of any mana fluctuation. Death Gardens had always been an unsolvable mystery of no scent. Even the powerful mages at the peak of the magic era couldn't explain the theory behind them. But even if Lin Yun didn't know the theory behind it, experiencing it himself gave him some understanding. He was able to understand that the Death Garden was in fact a world born of death energy. But that world was very frail. If someone passed through the illusion, that world would collapse, and without world absorbing the death energy, the later would condense into some things. Those things could be abilities, magic materials, or maybe other things. It could be concluded that it was because of this that no one in no-scent history was able to get a death magic tool in a garden. Magic tools came as a result of alchemy, after all. Death Garden were strange and formidable, but they couldn't replace the refining process of alchemy. But regardless, the things the Death Garden left behind inevitably contained a huge amount of death energy, since they were condensed from death energy itself. The stone tablet he received was devoid of mana fluctuation. Didn't that mean he came here for nothing? Well, stone tablet aside, no ability had appeared in Lin Yun's mind. He couldn't be deceived. As a great mage, his understanding of his body was top-notch. A tiny change couldn't be concealed from him. He had carefully paid attention to his body the instant the Death Garden disappeared, but no changes happened, meaning that he didn't receive any ability. Aren't I too unlucky? Lin Yun felt very disappointed. This was a Death Garden, an existence that led to the rise of the Sovereign of Death. Lin Yun took such a big risk, spent so much of energy, but what was the final reward? He was in existence with heaven-defying luck like Sandro, who got both Undead Contract and Soul Stone. But couldn't he get a reward at the very least? Wouldn't that be good? No ability appeared, and the only reward he got was a mere stone tablet with no mana fluctuation. Lin Yun ultimately sighed and put the stone tablet in his bag. After inspecting his bag, he counted 5 magic spring left. He knew that it was time to leave this tomb. Next time, he would have to prepare enough magic spring. He definitely had to find the reincarnation eye. Only the reincarnation eye could make up for the loss of the Death Garden. After casting a magic array-enhanced haste, Lin Yun used his fastest speed to rush out of the passage. He made a command, and the magically enhanced vine softly coiled around Lin Yun and dragged him out of the Prince Tomb. Maybe because he was too fast, or because he was crestfallen, but the always careful Lin Yun didn't notice the ambush that had been prepared for him. Mana Skeleton warriors were actually waiting at the entrance of the tomb, all wearing a complete set of armor and scimitars in perfect conditions, the standard equipment of the Third Era Royal Guards. There was at least 100 of them. And with this equipment, even Lin Yun would suffer once surrounded. These skeletons had been waiting in ambush for a long time, their soul fires flickering. But when Lin Yun entered, these skeleton royal guards all unanimously retreated, their flickering soul fire instantly darkening. If mages who had studied undead life forms saw this, they would be frightened. There was only 2 possibilities for undead life forms' soul fires darkening. One was imminent death, and the other was fear. The first could be ruled out. 100 of lively, undead royal guards. How could they be in danger of imminent death? It could only be the second. But only a higher-level undead life form could make one of them feel fear. How could a mage like Lin Yun scare them? Lin Yun never noticed these ambushing skeleton warriors. Otherwise, he would have re-evaluated the reward from the Death Garden. Through these skeletons' reaction, he might have, even though that not every ability would induce a change in one's body. It was already late in the night when Lin Yun arrived at Thousand Sails City. What he experienced today was too stimulating, even for Lin Yun. Especially that final fight in the Death Garden, it completely exhausted Lin Yun's stamina. He had planned to research the stone tablet after returning to the Gilded Rose, but he felt the fatigue assaulting him when he sat down. He fell asleep on his chair without even noticing. He slept until noon. When he opened his eyes, he found out that a blanket had been put around him and breakfast had been put on the side of the table. He guessed that it was most likely the old butler. The old butler had never came in contact with magic. He didn't even know much about great mages. But he stubbornly believed that magic study shouldn't be disturbed. A huge issue couldn't be compared with his young master's magic study. Thus, the old butler had always been taking care of his young master's daily needs stealthily, just like he did now, secretly putting a blanket around him while he slept and putting some food on his table, afraid of waking Lin Yun from his sleep. Lin Yun smiled before making the breakfast disappear in a few mouthfuls. He then took out the stone tablet and returned to his laboratory. The palm-sized stone tablet was put on a refining table. It had no mana fluctuations, nor any death aura. It looked just like an ordinary stone tablet. But Lin Yun was convinced that this stone tablet looked ordinary, because he had yet to find its secret. This was a stone tablet from the Death Garden, the convergence of a huge amount of death energy. Even if it wasn't something heaven-defying like a soul stone, it shouldn't be a common stone tablet. Thus, Lin Yun spent a few hours in his laboratory. Lin Yun used alchemy reagents to analyze it at first, but he quickly understood that he was wrong. He used 24 alchemy reagents and came to the same result. There was nothing strange about it on the material side. It was a stone tablet. Well, if the analysis of alchemy reagents is inconclusive, then I can try to make it react to mana. Lin Yun held the stone tablet in his hand and began pouring a large amount of mana. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Lin Yun had some expectations at the start, but he couldn't help grumbling inwardly after 30 minutes. This damn stone tablet is a bottomless pit. Regardless how much mana he poured in, it couldn't be filled. Yet the reaction Lin Yun was expecting never happened. Fuck, so annoying. Lin Yun angrily cursed it when he felt that he was running out of mana and stopped this futile effort. Lin Yun truly wanted to know what that damn stone tablet was made of. How could it be so stubborn? Why wouldn't it yield? Or was that damn stone tablet picky about the food? Right, can it eat a spell? Lin Yun suddenly got an idea. The stone tablet was from the Death Garden. It was condensed from a huge amount of death energy. Maybe it had some of the properties of undead life forms? What about a fire spell? Lin Yun was careful, afraid of the stone tablet being harmed by a powerful fire spell. Thus, he chose a simple flaming hand. Lin Yun didn't even need to use gestures to use this kind of beginner-level spell. He grabbed the stone tablet and cast the spell, flames instantly rising from his hand. Lin Yun then noticed that his thought pattern had been correct. Death aura was released the instant the flames appeared. At the same time, The details of his flaming hand appeared in his mind. What? Lin Yun was startled. His flaming hand was extinguished, and the stone tablet also slipped out of his hand and fell to the ground. What appeared in his mind just now was too strange. Lin Yun stood there, looking at the stone tablet in a daze. An extremely complicated expression appeared on his face, a mix of dread and expectation. This stone tablet's strangeness far exceeded what Lin Yun imagined. It could affect his mind, yet the ability contained within was something Lin Yun yearned for. Complete analysis of spells. No mage could resist such a power. It took a long time before Lin Yun decided to pick up the tablet from the floor with shivering hands. Lin Yun's expression was very complicated with the stone tablet in his hand, because the next thing he had to try was using the magic array. Lin Yun would be able to deal with losing of control of his flaming hand spell, but if a problem happened with the magic array, he would only be able to close his eyes and wait for his death. The magic array was an extension of his life, the mark of his soul. It was the foundation of Lin Yun as a great mage. After no less than 10 minutes, Lin Yun took a deep breath and tightly held the stone tablet as he used his magic array. So it's indeed like that. As his magic array was activated, Lin Yun's brows relaxed. He had noticed that the efficiency of his magic array had been doubled with the stone tablet. He originally needed a minute to be able to complete a melded spell, but he only needed 30 seconds now. That's enough. There was no need to keep experimenting. Lin Yun put back the stone tablet on the refining table. Lin Yun had finally confirmed that he had taken a component of the Death Garden, a component able of computing and analysis of spells. As for its rank, it should be above True Spirit. Lin Yun no longer envied Sandro. Even if the power of this stone tablet wasn't as good as the Soul Stone, this was a component. If Lin Yun got his hands on the Book of Death and merged them, then the power of the Book of Death might reach a frightening level. Not to mention that this component was powerful enough by itself. After all, Lin Yun's magic conducting rune was the magic array. The most annoying part of the magic array was its complexity and details. The merging of every spell's incantation and metamagic would take a long time. Lin Yun could now improve the efficiency of his magic array with this component in hand. Boss Merlin, Alchemist Baisoro is here. The doorbell of the alchemy lab was rang by Remy as Lin Yun was still immersed in the study of the component. Okay, got it. Let Baisoro wait a bit. I'll finish up here and go over quickly. Lin Yun was very satisfied with the stone tablet, so much that he wasn't even bothered by Baisoro interrupting his research. Lin Yun met Baisoro in the reception room a few minutes later. That great alchemist seemed more uncomfortable facing Lin Yun than during their last meeting. It was caused by a piece of information he received this morning. Yesterday evening, a young great mage invaded the Poison Fog Canyon on his own and successfully coerced the first underground force of Thousand Sails City to open up a trade route. When he heard that, Basoro's heart started beating furiously. He then made some inquiries and confirmed that the great mage's name was Mafa Merlin. That gave Basoro a fright. Basoro did indeed know that Mafa Merlin was very powerful to the point of being able to use a wind blade to cut the wrist of a magic apprentice in front of two great mages. But Basoro never expected him to be such a monster. That was the Viper Nest, the first underground power of Thousand Sails City. They had been building in a Poison Fog Canyon despite the hostile environment all those years. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe the place as well fortified. To boot, they also had the Great Mage Bell, someone who even Solomon praised. Yet Mafa Merlin went in alone and forced them to yield to him and open up a trade route. Who could make sense of this? Hello, great alchemist Basoro. Hello, great mage Merlin. Basoro took a deep breath, trying to appear calm. But his nervousness was immediately betrayed once he opened his mouth. This couldn't be blamed on Basoro. This was a person that had single-handedly attacked the Poison Fog Canyon. Even Sauce would bow to him. Who could avoid being nervous in front of him? Basoro quickly managed to calm down a bit. The great alchemist then said with an enthusiastic smile on his face, "Great Mage Merlin, I heard about an interesting matter in the past 2 days." "Oh, I heard that the Manchi family's twin moon splendor has already been sealed because of some quality issue with their items. They might also face a hearing. That's a shame. It looked as if Lin Yun was feeling sorry for them. Great Mage Merlin didn't hear about it. Baisaro was startled when he saw Lin Yun's expression. Twin Moon Splendor's misfortune is unconditionally due to your fortune, so why don't you own it? But as he thought of this, Basaro's focus was brought back to the conversation with Lin Yun's next sentence. How could I? It's been too busy recently. There are too few alchemists in the Gilded Rose. Even myself, the owner, has to work. I haven't been able to go out for several days. Baisaro inwardly felt like spitting on the floor. Too shameless. You say that you haven't left for a few days when you actually did yesterday and force Sauce to open up a route for you. If you had remained here for a few days, then who sent Sauce Sentry Towers flying with flame bursts yesterday? A ghost. But Baisaro was worthy of being an old fox. Thinking about Merlin's words, he understood the important point. It wasn't Merlin not leaving, but rather the pitiful amount of alchemists. I see. Great Mage Merlin wants alchemists. It was very normal considering the situation. After the appearance of the Hope Potion, the Gilded Rose's business was booming, each day better than the previous one. They might soon become the most influential alchemy shop in Thousand Sail City. Yet the number of alchemists didn't raise much. It was because 99% of the alchemists of Thousand Sail City were in the hands of the Alchemist Guild. He could only recruit enough alchemists through the Alchemist Guild. If someone else had suggested something like this, Baisaro would probably refuse and turn him down. After all, why was the Alchemist Guild the one in charge of the alchemy market in Thousand Sail City? Why could they seal stores, seize goods, and conduct hearings? Wasn't it because the majority of the alchemists were in the hands of the Alchemist Guild? How could such an important resource be so casually transferred? Unfortunately, he couldn't turn down the person sitting in front of him so easily. Not to mention his mastery of that alchemy formula. As a great mage, he had swept the viper nest. Baisaro had to think carefully. He wasn't sure Merlin was someone that could even be turned down. After all, the stronger a mage was, the more eccentric they would inevitably become. Solomon was a good example. It would definitely become a big problem if this young mage got irritated after being denied. Thus, Baisaro not only didn't dare to decline, he was actually looking for a way to agree. He was afraid his own answer wouldn't be enthusiastic enough, so he meticulously squeezed out an earnest smile. Haha, we are in a similar situation. Great Mage Merlin, I'm so busy I barely have free time. There are hundreds of alchemists in the guild, and I have to arrange all of their jobs. I'm having headaches trying to find them jobs. Oh, that's right, Great Mage Merlin. Aren't you planning to expand the Gilded Rose? Can you do me a favor? Can you recruit a group of alchemists for me? I dare say that the alchemists under me are all above standard. There are even a few remarkable ones. If they work hard, they might even be able to attack the great alchemist level. No problem. Lin Yun also smiled. Not too many for now. Let's start with 50. Baisaro nearly choked. 50? Not many. Damn, the amount of alchemists the Alchemist Guild can get a hand on hasn't even reached 200s. Okay, perfect. On only 50, I'll have to find another home for the others. Baisaro stuttered with an extremely stiff smile. It looked like he was about to cry. He couldn't rediscuss this. Although neither side said it clearly, they both knew that this deal entailed something else. Once the 50 alchemists were transferred, Baisaro would obtain the alchemy formula he yearned for. Basaro's expression eased up when he thought of the various benefits this alchemy formula would bring him. After some small talk, Baisaro even told Lin Yun a piece of information. All right, Great Mage Merlin, I heard that the Manchi family is planning on organizing an alchemy exhibition too. In fact, Manchi had no other way. After Loch Merlin's shipwreck, Thousand Sail City's alchemy market was in chaos. This was the best opportunity for the Manchi family, who had been painstakingly looking for a way into the alchemy market. For this opportunity, Manchi didn't hesitate to spend 4 million golds in the Blackhorn auction to get the volcano and ghost potions in order to get the assistance of 2 great alchemists from the Black Tower. He originally thought that it would only be a matter of time before he could monopolize the alchemy market thanks to these 2 great alchemists' help and Manchi family's huge financial resources. But it happened that Loch Merlin's son, a boy named Maffa Merlin, reopened the Gilded Rose. To be frank, Manchi truly didn't put Maffa Merlin in his eyes at the beginning. How could a youth that wasn't even 20 and an old man past his 60s create any storm in Thousand Sail City? But Manchi quickly discovered that he had been wrong all along, because that Maffa Merlin's rise was too fast, so fast that he couldn't react on time. After all, Maffa Merlin was a mere magic apprentice owing 80,000 golds after his father's death. But he then turned his life around, becoming a mage able to take out over 1 million golds in the Blackhorn auction to get a bottle of red flame fish oil. It was at that time that Manchi started taking him seriously. But he was late. That Maffa Merlin released the Hope Potion in the Gilded Rose, startling the entire Thousand Sail City. Moreover, he had learned from Granger that Maffa Merlin had most likely become a great mage. And this wasn't all. This morning, just like Besaro, Manchi received the news that the poisoned Fog Canyon, which had been fortified for 10 years by Sauce, was attacked by a single great mage. 2 sentry towers had been sent flying by 2 flame bursts, forcing Sauce to open a trade route. And that young great mage's name was Maffa Merlin. When he heard that news, Manchi felt 10 years older. He knew it was too late. Loch Merlin's son had matured to the point even he had to treat him as an equal. Fortunately, there was still the Black Tower behind him. Several days ago, the Black Tower had agreed to his conditions. As the provider of the Ghost Potion and Volcano Potion, Manchi obtained the opportunity to share the results of the 2 great alchemist studies. The advanced skills the 2 great alchemists obtained from the study of the Volcano Potion and Ghost Potion will be provided in priority to the Manchi family alchemy shops. This was great news to Manchi. The Black Tower's answer gave a crushing advantage to the Manchi family in terms of alchemy skill. 2 great alchemists, as well as the advanced skills of the Volcano and Ghost Potions, will make the Manchi family the leader of the alchemy market for a decade at the very least. The Hope Potion was only aimed at magic apprentices, after all. But what Manchi was about to display was the work of 2 great alchemists, as well as the skills used in the Volcano and Ghost Potions. Manchi family's alchemy exhibition was scheduled 3 days later. The exhibition content were the same, potion, but it was 2 of them this time. One could make a swordsman go berserk for a short duration, temporarily giving him the fighting strength of great swordsmen, the Berserk Blood Potion. The other could instantly twist space, giving a second of immunity to physical attacks, the Nothingness Potion. Those who participated in the Blackhorn auction could naturally see that these 2 potions were inferior versions of the Volcano and Ghost Potions. But even if they were inferior version, they shocked over half of Thousand Sail City. The Volcano Potion and Ghost Potion had been the finale of the auction, reaching the price of 4 million golds, a new record for the Blackhorn auction house. Although the effects of the Berserk Blood and Nothingness Potions of the Manchi family were quite far from the Volcano and Ghost Potions, they could still be considered rare potions. Almost everyone felt that the Gilded Rose was meeting a stronger opponent this time. After all, the Gilded Rose had been in the limelight because of the Hope Potion. If not for the lack of alchemists, the Gilded Rose would have shops all over the city. Such a fierce rise could be said to have shocked the entire Thousand Sail City. Tongues were wagging endlessly after the Manchi family announced this exhibition. Some were rejoicing in others' misfortune, while some were secretly worried. At this moment, few were optimistic about the prospects of the Gilded Rose. Nothing could be done about it. The Manchi family was a huge entity. A 1,000-year-old clan was no joke. With the support of high-end alchemy skills, It wouldn't take long before they enjoy monopoly of the market like Loch Merlin did. At this time, in the Blackhorn auction house, I wonder what Monchi would think if he learned that his treasured berserk blood and nothingness potions were basically leftovers from great Mage Merlin's work. In Khadgar's study, Fallow was standing on the balcony, looking at the people crowding around the alchemy exhibition as he harshly mocked. Huh. Khadgar chuckled but didn't answer. With his identity as the Blackhorn auction house's chief auctioneer, he naturally couldn't mock them like Fallow. But this chuckle would have given Monchi a horrible premonition if he had been here. Oh right, Fallow, the Gilded Rose is recruiting alchemists. Ah, Fallow stood at attention. How could he not know who the owner of the Gilded Rose was? The words Mafa Merlin uttered during the Blackhorn auction made his alchemy skills advance by leaps and bounds. How could he not understand the meaning behind Khadgar's words? Thinking of this, Fallow's breathing became rough. I already spoke with great Mage Merlin. You should look for him in the next few days. Ah, thank you, High Mage Khadgar. Thank you, great Mage Merlin, Fallow managed to say under the shock of such a pleasant surprise. Good, you can go then. I summoned you for this. Yes. Thank you, High Mage Khadgar. Fallow happily left. Fallow didn't know that the Gilded Rose didn't just hire one alchemist, but a full 50. This was a deal Lin Yin had with Beisoro, 50 alchemists for the alchemy formula, and Beisoro was quite efficient. No less than 50 alchemists quickly arrived at Lin Yin's shop. But these 50 alchemists' mood weren't as good as Fallow's. As esteemed members of the Alchemist Guild, they were actually reduced to work in an alchemy shop, and 50 of them were sent together. Were they sold at discount? Beisoro might have felt that letting Lin Yin know about the Monchi family's alchemy exhibition was selling the young mage a favor, but unfortunately, Lin Yin didn't think so. Lin Yin had no time to care about an alchemy exhibition at the moment. The Gilded Rose was accepting 50 alchemists today, and Lin Yin had to talk to each of them personally and make arrangements for each of them. He was overworked, so let alone the Monchi family alchemy exhibition, Lin Yin wouldn't care even if they had a funeral. He truly was too busy. Of the 50 alchemists, some were proficient in potioneering, some in puppet refining, some in enchanting, some in setting arrays, and so on. Lin Yin was the only person in the Gilded Rose that could understand their true level through an interview and arrange jobs suitable to their levels. Lin Yin didn't have time to even deal with these 50 alchemists, much less the Monchi family alchemy exhibition. These alchemists weren't easy to deal with. As member of the Alchemist Guild, they normally didn't put the alchemy shops of Thousand Sail City in their eyes. Even if they would occasionally accept a job, they would be full of arrogance. Even if the bosses of the alchemy shops were in front of them, they wouldn't mind flipping a table and cursing at them, not giving them any face. And no one would say anything. A saying spread through Thousand Sails City Alchemist Guild. Running an alchemy shop is very simple. It doesn't matter if there's no materials, funds, or even an owner. An alchemist is more than enough. That saying might sound exaggerated, but it was indeed true most of the time. When it came to the matter of alchemy shops, the most important part was the alchemist. Usually, an alchemy shop's boss was only in charge of providing supplies to his alchemist. What about being cursed at a few times? As long as they were willing to earn money, a few curses were nothing. These alchemists who were used to being respected were now packaged and sent to the Gilded Rose by Beisoro. It was impossible for them not to feel dissatisfied. But Beisoro's position in the Alchemist Guild was only inferior to Leader Liss. His words couldn't be discussed. Even if these alchemists were extremely bold, they still wouldn't dare to make Beisoro's dissatisfied. But being afraid of Beisoro didn't mean they were afraid of Lin Yin. They were all members of the Alchemist Guild, and 50 of them being packed and offered to the Gilded Rose was more than enough to make them feel wronged. Yet they didn't expect that this Gilded Rose's boss wouldn't consider them valuable. He split up the alchemists and gave them different jobs, putting some in charge of upgrading items, some in charge of enchanting, some in charge of choosing materials, some in charge of potion mixing. A few alchemists with bad temper flared up on the spot, asking him what he was up to. After all, weren't those the jobs usually given to apprentice alchemists? He had to be joking, was what they thought. Even if the alchemists didn't participate in the business part of the alchemy shop, They always had the final say in the alchemy laboratory. Does that Gilded Rose's boss not understand? If you were really such an expert, then why would you need us alchemists for? You can calmly count your golds. Why would you give us random orders? They originally thought that the commotion created by those few alchemists would restrain the Gilded Rose's boss. But they hadn't expected him to not even blink and ask them with a smile, "Should I ask great alchemist Basoro to personally come for the arrangements?" Once he said those words, even the bad-tempered alchemists turned good. Who in the entire alchemist guild doesn't know that you are taking advantage of your connection to great alchemist Basoro? If you really call him here to make arrangements, which of us could still have a good future? In the end, only 2 alchemists were still complaining. But Lin Yun ignored them. He just paid some attention to the 2 alchemists, one old, one young. The old one was in his 50s, and the young one in his 20s. Lin Yun actually knew the young one. It was an alchemist Basoro had personally recommended, House. He was turning 25 this year, and had been an alchemist for 3 years. In other words, it was a genius that had become an alchemist at 22. His talent was only inferior to Blackhorn Auction House's fallow. It's normal for young geniuses to be arrogant, especially someone like House. A 22-years-old alchemist could be considered gifted and fortunate, someone with great prospects. But he was packed and sent to the Gilded Rose on Basoro's words. It would be wrong to say he wasn't dissatisfied, but the other one made Lin Yun frown. That alchemist was over 50, had a mediocre appearance and mediocre skills. He was one of those that might be easily forgotten even after meeting 10 times. When Lin Yun heard him calling himself John, he felt that his name was as unremarkable as his appearance. There were hundreds of John in Thousand Sail City. It was a common name among common names. But it was that particularly alchemist that attracted Lin Yun's attention several times. That John was usually the type to remain within the mass, a quiet one. But every time other alchemists complained, he would always be the one echoing the complaint in a fiercer way. It seemed that Basoro had delivered a troublesome one. Lin Yun didn't say much, but he had already remembered that John. It was the middle of the afternoon when Lin Yun was done talking to every alchemist and making arrangements. He had to take them to their workplace to have them adapt to their new environment. "Boss Merlin, what do you mean by this?" But problems ensued when it came to House. The Gilded Rose had made a lot of efforts in order to house these 50 alchemists. The old butler had bought over a dozen houses in one go, which were all transformed into alchemy laboratory. Lin Yun and House were now in one of the remodeled alchemy laboratory. This was the alchemy laboratory House had been assigned to, but that young, talented alchemist was clearly dissatisfied. "What do you mean?" Lin Yun couldn't help frowning. Although he didn't say much, he was already annoyed at Basoro. "I straightforwardly gave you the alchemy formula, but you gave me a bunch of arrogance pricks. That House is especially annoying. Boss Merlin, take a look at these magic materials. Isn't the quality too poor? Materials of such quality are only given to magic apprentices to practice. Moreover, this refining table. Your Gilded Rose is not serious, is it? These tools have been replaced by the Alchemist Guild 10 years ago. Did you find them in an antique shop?" Lin Yun walked over and glanced at it, knowing that this kid was looking for trouble again. The Poor Materials House was talking about all came from the Silver Moon Mercenaries. That was the best mercenary group in Thousand Sail City, and there has never been an issue with magic materials they have sold over the years. How would Sasu react if he heard House words? As for the Alchemy Tools House was talking about, well, Lin Yun had to admit that compared to the Alchemist Guilds, they were indeed outdated. But nothing could be done about it. The Alchemist Guild had an insurmountable advantage over the alchemy shops, the most comprehensive knowledge and the best of equipments. How else would the Alchemist Guild be able to keep 99% of the alchemists of Thousand Sail City? This advantage wasn't something the Gilded Rose could match with. Even when Loch Merlin had the monopoly of the alchemy market, the flashing gold chamber of commerce still couldn't rival the Alchemist Guild's resources. House wasn't an idiot. There was no way he wasn't aware of this. There was only one reason for him saying this. He was looking for trouble. It looks like Alchemist House has a major complaint about the Gilded Rose. Lin Yun stood there, smiling at House. That's right, I have a complaint about it. So what? House hadn't known that he was digging his hole deeper and deeper. Seeing Lin Yun smile, he felt that Merlin still had a good disposition. It was unfortunate that House didn't know Rios. That great swordsman of the Viper Nest would have been frightened to death if Lin Yun smiled at him like that. He wouldn't dare having any complaint. Knock, knock. House was saved from digging his own hole by the sound of someone knocking on the door. Boss Merlin, there's an alchemist named Fallow outside. Fallow. Lin Yun just remembered that when he had visited the Blackhorn auction house the day before yesterday, Khadgar had mentioned that Lin Yun's words had helped Fallow make rapid progress, and he was already standing at the door of the Great Alchemist rank. Unfortunately, he couldn't break through, so he was hoping for pointers from Lin Yun. Lin Yun had thought about it and told Khadgar that there was no problem, but after Fallow accepted his pointers, he would have no relationship with the Blackhorn auction house and had to work for the Gilded Rose for at least 10 years. It was because Fallow would inevitably come in contact with some core formulas of the Gilded Rose and might even take his place in compounding the Hope Potion. This was the core of the Gilded Rose and simply couldn't be leaked. At that time, Lin Yun felt that Khadgar would hesitate to part with such a young and promising alchemist. But he hadn't expected that Khadgar would actually agree immediately. Lin Yun couldn't help inwardly sighing. Impressed, Fallow was truly lucky. This was the caring attitude of the older generation towards the younger generation. Khadgar was hoping Fallow would have a good future, regardless of whether it would profit the Blackhorn auction house. Fallow. While Lin Yun was reminiscing, the young house on the side couldn't help standing at attention when he heard the name. How could he not know Fallow? That was Blackhorn auction house's talented alchemist. Apprentice alchemist at 13, alchemist at 18, and standing at the entrance of the Great Alchemist rank in his 20s. House had always considered Fallow his target and idol, always hoping he could work at the same place as Fallow, being able to work in an amazing place like the Blackhorn auction house and reach the peak of the alchemist rank in his 20s. Alchemist House, wait a bit. Unfortunately for House, Lin Yun hurriedly said a few words and hurried out, not even leaving him a chance to ask one of the questions that were on the tip of his tongue. Lin Yun came out of the alchemy laboratory and saw Fallow waiting for him in the hallway. At this moment, this young alchemist looked like an excited child hiding his anxiousness. Merlin, Great Mage Merlin, High Mage Khadgar sent me here. Fallow was somewhat nervous. Others might not know, but he knew that the person before him was a great alchemist extremely close to the master rank. In Thousand Sails City, only leaderless was worthy of being considered his equal. Last time at the Blackhorn auction, Great Mage Merlin only had to say a few sentences to let him have great progress in alchemy. Now that he was on the verge of breakthrough, if he could obtain pointers from this great mage, he would inevitably be able to become a great alchemist in the near future. This was an opportunity Fallow had been waiting for a long time. Yes, High Mage Khadgar discussed this with me. Lin Yun nodded, but he didn't have time to manage Fallow's excitement and anxiousness. The 50 alchemist Basoro sent him made him feel too edgy and annoyed. He didn't even have time to study that stone tablet, and Fallow just happened to arrive now. Fallow, you came just on time. There's an alchemist inside which I just recruited. Help me familiarizing him with the alchemy laboratory and giving him some potion mixing work. You can then look for me in a reception room. I have some words for you. Yes, I'll take care of it right away. Fallow was filled with excitement. He really hadn't thought that he would be entrusted with heavy responsibility after arriving at the Gilded Rose. It looks like he would become a great alchemist soon. After respectfully seeing Lin Yun off, Fallow pushed open the door of the alchemy laboratory. Alchemist Fallow. House eyes shone. He didn't expect that he would be able to meet his idol in the Gilded Rose. He was so moved he didn't know where to put his hands. Alchemist Fallow. I am House from the Alchemist Guild. I admire your accomplishments. Oh, right. Alchemist Fallow. Does the Blackhorn auction house need alchemists? I would love to work in the same place as you. Fallow opened his mouth, but no sound came out of it. He was speechless. He was thinking, is that House an idiot? He has already entered the Gilded Rose. You'd want to go work for the Blackhorn auction house. Do you not know who the owner of the Gilded Rose is? Are you blind? I haven't been able to sleep in the last 2 days just from being accepted in the Gilded Rose. Fellow really wanted to take a seed and a watermelon out and ask House, which one is bigger? This wasn't a joking matter. Beside Khadgar, is there a single exceptionally outstanding alchemist in the Blackhorn auction house? And even Khadgar himself would be startled and full of admiration at the mention of Lin Yun's name. He even felt that great mage Merlin would become Thousand Sail City's first artisan. Fallow really wanted to ask House if something was wrong with his brain. You are in Gilded Rose's laboratory, yet you want to go work for the Blackhorn auction house. Are you brain dead? But he decided that he didn't really care. Forget it. His brain issues don't matter. I have hundreds of admirers in Thousand Sail City. It's normal for a few of them to be completely stupid. I'll deal with you and then go to the reception room. I can't let great Mage Merlin wait for too long. Fellow quickly gave up on this admirer. Alchemist house, right? You should know these alchemy tools. I won't introduce them to you. Let's talk about your work. You'll work on mixing alchemy potions for the time being. I'll have some people deliver some semi-finished potions, and you'll be in charge of handling them. Yes, no problem. People were strange sometimes. If Lin Yun had spoken to House with such an indifferent tone, that young, talented alchemist would inevitably have become hostile. But since the one who said those words was Fallow, House felt that those instructions were quite proper. Fallow was Thousand Sail City's most outstanding alchemist, someone that would soon become a great alchemist. It was already a rare and precious occasion to have him talk to him. How could he hope for more? After all, great characters weren't like Merlin. Great characters needed arrogance deserving of their status. House could find all sorts of reasons for thinking so highly of Fallow. If House learned that Fallow was just doing things half-heartedly because he was in a hurry to meet the kind-hearted boss Merlin, who knew what he would think. Okay, I'll be on my way. He wasn't interested in what House thought, so after quickly dealing with him, Fallow hurried to the reception room. He stopped in front of the door and took a deep breath. He knocked on the door only after calming his heart and unwrinkling his robe. Come in. Lin Yun was looking at the data he had on the alchemists, and he casually pointed to a chair. Sit down, Fallow. Fallow naturally didn't dare to trouble him, and simply sat across from Lin Yun. A few minutes later, Lin Yun was done looking through the alchemist data, so he asked, Fallow, do you understand why Khadgar sent you over? Yes, I understand. Fallow naturally knew that Khadgar had seen him stuck at the boundary between alchemist and great alchemist for some time before he resolved himself to send him to the Gilded Rose. Whether it was Khadgar or himself, they both felt that the only one able to help him make a breakthrough was great mage Merlin. Khadgar talked to me a few times, and he said that you were among the youngest alchemists of Thousand Sail City, one with the brightest prospects. He was hoping I could help you, and I agreed. I think that if you are hard-working enough, you'll become a great alchemist within 3 months. Really? Fallow froze. GR great, Mage Merlin. He is saying I'll be able to break through? And within 3 months. Fallow would be suspicious if anyone else claimed this. But who was the person standing in front of him? He was a peak existence among great alchemists, someone only a step away from the Master Alchemist rank. Moreover, Khadgar had been sighing in regret quite a few times, sad that this great mage was spending too much time on magic at the expense of his achievements in alchemy. If that great mage Merlin was willing to spend more time on alchemy, even just a bit, he would have already become a master. Moreover, he might become the first artisan of Thousand Sail City. Unfortunately, this great mage's focus wasn't on alchemy. Yes, 3 months. The peak great alchemist that even Khadgar admired once again gave his guarantee, making Fallow's heart race. Becoming a great alchemist, even reaching the master rank, didn't feel as remote as before. I'll definitely work hard. That's good. This is your contract. Sign it if you're fine with it. Later, I'll show you around my alchemy laboratory. Okay. Fallow took a glance at the contract, and then signed without thinking too much about it. Lin Yun smiled, as he hadn't expected Fallow to be so straightforward. This was a magic contract. He couldn't back out once he signed it, or else the contract's mana would make him pay a huge price. Good, Fallow. Welcome to the Gilded Rose. Lin Yun extended his hand and shook Fallot's. Just as he was about to lead Fallot to his laboratory, knocking sounds came from the reception door. Knock, 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 knock. Rapid and loud knocks rang out, far less polite than Fallot's, making Lin Yun frown. Come in. Sure enough, the newcomer was House. Mafa Merlin, what are you up to? House entered the reception room, filled with fury. He threw his worksheet on the long table, using an impolite tone and even omitting the boss part, using his name directly instead. I already said that I am an alchemist, not a damn apprentice alchemist. Why is there no one to help me operate my alchemy tools? Why is there no one to help me process magic materials? Don't tell me that the Gilded Rose is so poor that it can't hire a few apprentice alchemists. You should know that an alchemist's time is very precious. This is practically a crime. Lin Yun scratched his chin and picked up the worksheet in front of him. He didn't know what to say for some time. Indeed, the processing of magic materials and the manipulation of alchemy tools were the work of apprentice alchemists in ordinary alchemy shops. But the Gilded Rose wasn't an ordinary alchemy shop. What ordinary alchemy shop could hire 50 alchemists? Usually, an alchemist needed a minimum of 5 apprentice alchemist assistants. The work of those apprentice alchemists wouldn't be too complicated, mostly consisting of some minor jobs that alchemists were unwilling to do or disdain doing, such as magic material processing, temperature control, tool manipulation, numerical calculations, and so on. In fact, the former alchemists of the Gilded Rose had been allocated with that standard number of assistants. But it couldn't be done now. The Gilded Rose now had a total of 51 alchemists, including Fallot. Even if they were given the lowest number typically required, they would need a total of 255 apprentice alchemists. How could he find so many apprentice alchemists in such a short time? Naturally, this didn't mean that the Gilded Rose wasn't going to provide the alchemists with assistance. It just wouldn't be that fast. They had just gotten 51 alchemists today. Where could they find 255 apprentice alchemists? Lin Yun said nothing after thinking about this issue. It was because he knew that talking was useless, as House would still come looking for trouble anyways. Fallot, take care of it. Lin Yun picked up Fallot's contract and left without even looking at House. House almost had a stroke. Too arrogant. As the boss of an alchemy shop, he actually dares to treat me like this? Regardless of what happens today, I must leave this damn Gilded Rose and go back to speak to great alchemist Baysoro to see if he could let me work at the Blackhorn auction house. That way, I'll be able to get some pointers from Alchemist Fallot. But here, House finally realized something. Hold on. Alchemist Fallot. House face paled. He suddenly noticed that his idol was standing in front of him, and he didn't seem to be in a good mood. Alchemist Fallot. House subconsciously gulped. Although he didn't know why Fallot's expression was so unsightly, he could feel extreme annoyance coming from his expression. That's right, Fallot was truly infuriated. He was having a nice discussion with Great Mage Merlin and had even received an invitation to the most mystical alchemy laboratory of Thousand Sail City. But now that kid rushed here and angered Great Mage Merlin over a trivial matter. Are you seeking death? Fucking. Fallot originally wanted to curse at him, but upon opening his mouth and pointing, he realized that he had forgotten his name. House. The pitiful young genius had no choice but to timidly remind him. Alchemist House it is, Fallot first nodded before his face sank. Has your teacher never told you that personally processing magic materials and manipulating alchemy tools is a required task for alchemists? You can't even do such a trivial matter, yet you want to be an outstanding alchemist? And who do you think you are? You are just an alchemist. You aren't a great alchemist, nor a master alchemist. What qualifications do you have to be picky? If you don't believe me, go back to Baysoro and watch his expression when you tell him that the Gilded Rose didn't allocate any assistance to you. Alchemist Fallot. That's not what I meant. House mind was thrown into chaos by Fallot's harsh words, his tears quickly falling down. He didn't even know why Fallot was getting so angry, but he kept apologizing as he tried to explain himself. Go back and think about it. Ask yourself whether the Gilded Rose is actually mistreating you. Fallot didn't care about House feelings, and he didn't care how talented he was. There were too many geniuses in the world of alchemy. A few would appear every years, But in the end, only a few would become great alchemists. Even Fallot himself was dubbed a young genius. When he became an alchemist at the age of 18, everyone had said that he was a rare genius only seen every 100 years. But once he was in his 20s, still an alchemist, people would only say that he was promising. Yes, just promising. In the world of alchemy, if you weren't a great alchemist, you were nothing, someone promising at most. If it wasn't for his encounter with great mage Merlin and the pointers he received at the Blackhorn auction, he would still be that promising Fallot. Of course, Fallot wouldn't tell this to House. He just left the room after saying his piece. He originally planned on looking around and familiarizing himself with the Gilded Rose, but after walking for a bit, a magic apprentice named Remy told him that great mage Merlin was calling for him to go to his alchemy laboratory on the second floor. Gilded Rose's second-floor alchemy laboratory. Fallot's eyes shone. Others might not know what it was, but how could Fallot not know about it? That was Thousand Sail City's most mystical alchemy laboratory. The Ghost Potion and Volcano Potion that sold for 4 million golds at the Blackhorn auction had been created in that laboratory. That was Great Mage Merlin's working space. It was where miracles were born. Fallot composed himself in front of the stairs. He calmed himself down and slowly walked up the stairs to enter that mystical place. Fallot noticed the fumes lingering around the refining table as soon as he entered. A crucible filled with thick liquid was letting out some bubbling noises as it stood over the fire. A tense, young great mage wearing a black robe was busying himself in front of the refining table. When he noticed Fallot coming in, he only nodded, "You are right on time. Come and help." "Oh, okay." Fallot couldn't hide the emotion in his voice. He knew that great mage Merlin was starting his teaching. But Fallot was only half correct. Lin Yun hadn't come to his laboratory to teach Fallot. The harvest of his trip to the Poison Fog Canyon had far surpassed Lin Yun's imagination. The Death Garden Stone Tablet was a true spirit-level component. True spirit level, and a component to boot. This was a treasure that could make countless mages fight each other to the death over it, even at the peak of the magic era. It had now quietly fallen into Lin Yun's hands. This made Lin Yun have greater expectations of that prince's tomb. But it was just that the last time he went to the Viper Tomb was to cause trouble for the Viper Nest. He hadn't thought that he would go deep in the Prince's tomb, and thus the magic spring potions he had on hand were insufficient. Over a dozen magic spring potions, 1 hope potion, and he didn't even have any mana replenishing or healing potions. This was the reason that Lin Yun didn't dare to go deeper in the Prince's tomb after clearing the Death Garden and could only retreat to Thousand Sail City. He would make ample preparations for his next trip to the Prince's tomb. After all, his true target was the reincarnation situated in the depths of the Prince's tomb. This was the real reason that Lin Yun went into his alchemy laboratory. As for giving pointers to Fallot, it was something he could do on the side.